Season's greetings and welcome to Giant Bomb's Game of the Year Deliberation Podcasts 2018. How's everybody feeling?
Great.
Yeah.
Limber.
Really ready for video games.
Everybody raring to talk about the games of the year?
Oh, I thought we were getting food.
That'll come
Okay.
at the end of this 25-hour process.
Okay.
We're going for food for thought.
Yeah.
Oh.
I hope you ate a big breakfast.
Food for discussion.
It's gonna be days.
I had an Asiago bagel here. They don't have those in New York, I found. I missed them.
Really?
Well, I'm sure some places do, but it's very hard to find.
We can't derail Game of the Year this early. Give it.
They
You
put
gotta
cheese
get
on the
going.
bagel,
Okay.
Alex. It's great.
Bagel of the year.
Bagel of the year, Dan, go.
What?
Bagel of the year, go.
Oh, Asiago.
Okay.
If it was a New York one.
Okay, well, with
It's
that
the water.
out of the way, we're trying some new stuff with the format this year.
Yeah.
We're changing things up. We've traditionally done somewhere in the ballpark of 20 categories throughout the week. We're shuffling some things around. We are reducing the number of categories to 10
Yes.
in favor of just talking about the games.
That's right.
That came
More
out this
discussion. I mean,
More
if you,
celebration of.
if you think about it, like,
games.
the secret, not secret, important part about Game of the Year every year was always like those games that never stayed in a category, but someone had something to say about
I
them.
mean, the ones that didn't hang.
The ones that did not hang.
Put it on just to take it off.
So
The ones
Yeah.
about which a piece must be said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like that's the actual value of this. It always has been. So instead of having that, leaving that off to the side as like a thing that is cutting into a larger discussion, we're structuring it to kind of put a spotlight onto that stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the actual. That's why we're here.
Yes.
To talk about the year in games
In a
And-
celebratory
and then there's
fashion.
some awards because why not?
Yes.
But ultimately, it's just here to give us a spot to talk about the games
about the
that
games.
we cared about one way or the other this year.
Also, I mean, when you're giving awards, it is a whittling process. You start with a list and you start going after the games you want to cut.
Yep.
So there's a whole lot of sort of negative horse trading going on to remove stuff. So
Definitely
we wanted
won't
to
happen this year.
we just wanted to have good open discussions about all the games we think matter this year.
Before we get
Before
into
we get to the part where
Start tearing each other down.
Yeah,
Yes.
where we tell each other why they're actually bad.
Yes.
So how are we going to accomplish that, Brad Shoemaker?
we have put together a list of what we think are the games that matter this year,
Oh.
which currently stands at
A little over 80, I think.
70, 79?
Did we
79?
remove
Okay.
some?
79 games at the moment.
Hefty.
All right.
Yeah. So, and we're going to do it chronologically.
By release.
So, yes, by initial release date. So, no favorites being played. We're just going to talk through the year.
And as we do that, maybe nominate a game or two for a category.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, we will go through traditional categories at the end of the week. And as we go through these games, we are going to kind of casually nominate them for stuff. I mean, if we don't think to nominate it on the spot, we can absolutely add it later. This is not
Yes.
a formal process. It's just a nice way of saying, hey, I think that game looks really good. Let's put it in the best looking list.
What other things could we nominate for?
Yeah, so here are the categories.
biggest sandwich.
Bagel of the year.
Asiago.
Here are the categories we will be hitting at the end of the week, later in the week.
There. That we'll be building towards.
We'll see how long it takes to get through this mammoth list. The 10 awards are Best Style, Best Music, Best Debut, Hottest Mess, Best Moment or Sequence, Best Story, Best Game as a Service or Ongoing Game,
Mm-hmm.
Best Looking, Most Disappointing, Best Game.
Cool.
So that's where we'll be getting
That's our tight 10.
later in the week.
I believe we didn't. Did we not settle on best ongoing game?
think
Not to
we-
start
I thought
this
we
with
had.
a thing that I
No, I
totally
thought-
thought
I-
we had.
I thought we had
settled,
locked that
but
in.
Yeah.
I'll change that right now if we want.
Yes, best ongoing game.
Okay.
And in the spirit of ongoing, this will be an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
And
all
beautiful. And,
It's a living podcast.
that's right.
In a year, these awards might be up for best game of the year awards if we're still thinking about
That's right.
them.
You'll
Yes.
get the DLC for these
Yeah,
awards.
there's nothing formal or binding about any of this. This is just
Except I would,
Except at the end.
I would like to say at this point these categories are pretty much
Yeah.
locked.
yes,
Yes.
those are. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right.
The other thing we're doing differently is taking pity on those poor games that are always released in the last, say, 3 weeks of the year and traditionally miss our cutoff.
It's a follow-on from some of the stuff we changed over the year in terms of early access stuff. Whereas last year we were not considering games that were only available in early access. We decided near the end of that process that this year would be the year that we would start to take that into account.
Yes.
As a result, there were some games that kind of got lost in the shuffle on both ends, where they were in early access at the time of our discussions, but then came out formally before the discussions were, or before the discussions had aired.
Right.
And so this is just like, I guess, a little housekeeping in a way.
Sure.
For some of those games. So they will be considered this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a big change. There's only a couple that we plucked from mid-December.
Yeah, some
last
things
year.
that kind of stood out in 2018 that maybe weren't released.
Yes. But as such, we will be starting this list of 2018's games with a couple of games from 2017. Be warned.
What you got?
The first game, submitted by one Vinny Caravella,
I did submit this.
is a little game called Gorogoa.
Yeah, for your consideration. Gorogoa was that puzzle game. It came out in mid-December last year, released on consoles this year. It's a puzzle game where you dive into pictures. I put it on here because I think this is a great representation of style. It's got a very novel mechanic that I don't think I've seen before. You're kind of laying vignettes on top of each other to build a unified vignette.
When you say pictures, they're kind of like paintings, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's
fine,
sort of
fine
like
art almost.
layered too. So it's like one square might serve a certain purpose on like the bottom right corner of the screen, but then you put in the top left corner, it's a whole other purpose, and that's sort of how you're solving these puzzles.
But all like illustrations and paintings, not photos. Is what
Yes.
I mean.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Yes.
yes. It is.
It's like of a very specific.
it is
kind
drawn.
of drawn style.
But you have a character who needs to move in kind of this. You're building like you'll move a staircase from the lower right of the screen in a card or picture or painting, and move it and layer it on top of a picture in the upper left, and now he can continue his way up onto a shelf or.
So it's like you're kind of sliding the backgrounds around and shuffling them
a bit, and
And
it,
like kind of going in and out of them, maybe taking one thing from one background
It's
and
like
like
a
pulling
tile
out
sliding
and-
puzzle.
unfortunately, it's hard to.
It's very hard to explain. Like this is a game that's hard to explain because I had to like think outside of myself to solve certain puzzles,
as
which
a-
is really neat. Like it made me kind of, it forced me to sort of approach puzzles differently.
It's
which
like
I
a beautiful
appreciated.
idea.
Yes,
Is it like if you had a
I
projector
really enjoyed the execution of it too.
and they're like transparencies? Is it like that?
kind of like that.
You
Yeah,
Similar.
move over
Yeah.
and okay.
Yeah.
But you kind of like will open into one world of one transparency and maybe take a piece from that or change a piece in there, and then it'll affect the other worlds within
Right.
that transparency.
It's when you something that you see in motion and execution is it's kind of arresting at the first time you see it and say, oh wow, I've never seen that done before.
Like walking by a kiosk that was running it. This was the first time I saw it, and it was just you just kind of stop and go like, "What are these four like painting things here?" And then you stare at it for another 20 or 30 seconds, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Yes,
right?
it
It's-
is.
Yes,
this is
that oh my god is like
crazy.
very satisfying once
Yeah.
you like put all the pieces together. It just like clicks in a way that is very nice.
If you want to,
to
there's
play.
a thing we got up here. We can just see what it looks
yes.
like in motion. Yeah.
So I think Gorogoa, I really enjoyed it. I like the puzzle aspect of it. I think some of its strongest aspects, though, would be, let's say, in a category like best debut, best style, was where I would place something like Gorogoa.
Yeah.
I would agree.
will make a note of that.
I think it belongs in both of those.
I like some of the narrative beats it has. It's like so kind of subtle and vague in a way I enjoy. Probably not worth putting it in that category, but I do
Yeah.
like what it does with the story.
does tell a story.
And kind of how it trickles through in a way that you kind of have to interpret it yourself.
Did you guys finish it? Because I played it when it came out, and I thought it was very neat. And
Yeah,
I
so.
also
About
ended up not finishing it. It was
45
like,
minutes
this
on
is
it.
really novel
Yeah.
and awesome, and I am dumb.
I played more than 45 minutes of it, but I don't think I finished it.
I honestly can't remember if I finished it.
It's a short game is the thing. Like I
yeah.
think it's just, how long it takes a person to solve a puzzle obviously will vary, but I think the overall progression of it is only like a handful
think-
of
I
hours.
mean,
Right. I got through like a bunch of the chapters. I don't
in a
remember.
world where I have infinite time, I might have played through the whole thing, but like I got the gist, in
Yes.
like an hour, and I was like, this is very clever and very well produced.
Right. The
But
things
then
I
but then
remem-
didn't end up going back to.
The things I remember about it are the visual style, the kind of not even the best style, and the novelty of the mechanics, and those are the reasons I think that it would fit well in those categories.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
also the reason that you felt compelled to put it on this list.
It's true.
Because we didn't get to talk about it last year.
That's true.
And now we have.
All right.
All right. The only other game from December of last year, Alex,
Yes,
this has been a long time coming.
it
This
is.
has been a tough year for you.
The game that was so surprising, it literally killed the best surprise category for this year. Fire Pro Wrestling World.
Yeah.
So it came to PC right after we finished our deliberations, which was hilarious.
So frustrating.
Did you have a code? You had got it early or something?
Oh, so it was in early access.
yeah.
It
Oh,
was
is
in
that
early
what it
access
was?
for a long
We
time.
covered it at
Yeah,
this point.
it started in like early last year. It was when
Like-
early access.
Point being, you knew it was good.
Yeah.
By the time we were doing this. But,
Yeah.
But the timing did not work out.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing.
And they hadn't announced their release date yet, so
Right.
it was like, okay, it's in early access. We don't know when it's coming out of early access, so we can't necessarily consider it.
Yeah.
And it ended up getting cut.
And another thing that sort of is a touchstone for this year is that the PS4 version came out this year, and along with that came the New Japan Pro Wrestling licensed content, which was not there in the original PC release. So this is still probably one of my favorite wrestling games of recent years.
It's like 2D?
It's 2D. Yeah, it's still sprite based the
Yeah.
way that the old games were. I mean, they're cleaner sprites, but it's still the same basic look and same basic vibe of there are a million customization parts. People build the real wrestlers out of all those parts, and they have this incredible database of creations that, on PC at least, it's like there's like 50,000 things you can download on there right now.
How many of them are just different versions of? Well, I guess now that there's an official Kenny Omega, maybe that's not
Yeah.
the problem. But like,
There's still probably a million.
I feel like it's like 30% CM Punks,
Yeah,
30% Kenny Omegas,
Yeah.
5% Benoits.
There's still I mean that's true in any game that has, or any wrestling game that
totally.
has those creations, that there will be a million takes on the same characters, but it's still like I went deep. I went on like obscure wrestlers from like Japanese wrestling from the 90s that no one remembers, and there's usually at least like one version of them up there somewhere.
That's awesome.
The one thing I will say about this game is that they fumbled a couple of things this year. The PS4 version came out way too expensive. It was $50 out of the gate, and then on top of
Yeah.
that, the season pass for all the DLC was another $50.
Oh, wow.
Which is too much money for what that game is.
And is that just more licensed wrestlers, or is that like season mode, story mode stuff?
There's a Booker mode, which lets you sort of build out your own wrestling cards that
they
has
added
not come
Booker
out
too.
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is more New Japan content coming. There's like a whole separate story mode that will feature the junior heavyweight wrestlers that hasn't come out yet. But some of the stuff around that, and also like the PC version kind of got left by the wayside for months while they were developing the PS4 version. I think that New Japan deal dictated that they had to get that PS4 version out at a certain time, and that kind of the PC community was kind of rioting for a little bit around that.
Did the PC version get that content eventually?
It did. It was like 2 months late though, so that was kind of a bummer. But they got there, and I think they're still working on developing that game. And I still think despite those fumbles, it is to me still one of the best wrestling games in recent memory, certainly. And I played a ton of it this year.
That's great.
Nice.
And I'm happy for you that you can now close this chapter in your life.
Yes. So I'm trying to think like if this belongs in a category. I mean, it made my top 10 list last year. It may still make my top 10 list this year, which I don't know if that's cheating or what, but that's probably
your
what
list,
I'm going to
man.
do.
Yeah.
I put Dota at number 1 2 years in a row.
Yeah, so I would I would float it for best game, but I feel like I may not have the support for that from other people.
That's a discussion for later in the week.
Yeah.
But
That is your choice. Would you like to nominate?
I would like to nominate it for best game.
okay, I'll throw it on there.
How about ongoing?
I mean, it's
It sounds
not
like some of those updates are a little fumbled in a way that might.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their messaging around that stuff has not been great,
Okay.
and some of that content hasn't even come out yet, so it's hard to really judge it. I'd say that, I think the way they handled adding the New Japan license was good. I think that story mode is surprisingly engaging.
It's really cool to see that type of licensed content in a Fire Pro game, which has traditionally just been like thrown together, kind of not licensed stuff.
Yeah, it's been trying to get around licensing laws more than anything else.
It was neat to see, like, okay, we signed a deal with the devil, and now they sold
Yeah.
out. They sold out.
But they sold out to the right company, I
Yeah,
think. So that ultimately, I think it worked in their favor. But yeah, I think I wouldn't put it for ongoing game because we still haven't seen all what that DLC is.
Okay.
That's kind of where I would keep it.
Okay.
Well, there's your best game.
All right, sweet.
All right.
We know
Man,
that.
that
The only
was
nominee
fast.
right now,
Yeah.
right?
It's already number one.
That was quick. All right, that wraps up December of 2017 and brings us into this year proper.
Here we go.
And what a year it was.
Yes.
There's some really good stuff.
Let's
this
talk
year.
about
Yes.
the year that
Some
was.
really great video games
Yes.
this year.
First game we have on here from mid to late January is Subnautica,
Yeah.
which I
Yep.
think was in early access prior.
Yes.
It
Yes,
was
it
for a while.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
right?
I remember doing the unfinished with Vinny.
Yeah. Subnautica is a good one of those.
Yes.
It is
One of
an
those what?
open world survival game underwater.
No Man's Sky type thing.
Well, Yeah, sure. Or
But
is
also,
it,
on one
it's not
big water
procedurally
planet,
generated.
yeah.
It is
is
like
it
a
even-
bespoke thing.
is it even more survival than that?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I always got. I haven't played. I actually really want to play it, but I haven't.
To me, it's
But I was-
closer to a Rust.
Yes.
Yeah,
than
yeah.
a,
I always got the sense that it was like a harsh one of those.
so
It's not as harsh as it could be.
For me-
they have some mode options as well.
for me, this is one of the only ones of the like this and Minecraft are the only ones of these games that I've actually enjoyed because this game in particular was very chill.
Yeah. Except for some parts.
Except for some
when you're
parts.
suffocating. to
Well,
death.
so
Or you go
Well,
too
yeah.
far out.
yeah, and a giant whale scares you.
there is a mode where you can turn off like the food and water aspect of it.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, like kind of a survival light.
We should say, I don't think we mentioned this at the top. If you're listening to this, heads up, we will be talking about video games.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I forgot to.
Yes, we will be talking about video games in detail and in depth.
Yes,
we will spoil.
There is a chance that any game we are discussing will be spoiled.
Yeah.
We'll try to give you a heads up if possible, but we're not going to hold back on that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That said, we're not going to go out of our way to spoil every game on this list as we talk about them. Like a lot of that stuff will probably be backloaded when the categories
We're
are
talking about
discussed.
story and
Right.
moment
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right. The best story category will be very perilous, but
But it'll be tough to talk about some games without going into
Yes.
details,
Some-
like swimming out deep into
Yes.
Subnautica.
some games, if like the ending is crucial to the conversation, we will talk about it up front.
Right.
But
Sorry,
not exhaustively. We're not going to talk about the ending of every game on this list.
Sorry, I think I interrupted.
No, I was pretty much just saying that, like, so the structure is really cool because you start kind of in this pod and you can't stray very far from it. So you're anchored down and you're just kind of exploring. And at first you see some cool fish, you see maybe a shipwreck out in the distance. And it's a game that's very good at encouraging you to slowly start exploring your surroundings more and more. Whereas, other survival games for me have been about, oh God, I'm wandering around. I don't know where I want to set up my camp. Everything's so scary. I don't know what to do. I'm just overwhelmed by this world. But there is something about Subnautica, and especially I think it's the fact that you start at sea level and work your way down that made it more compelling to me.
Do you just live in your ship?
When you start, so it's a base building game as well. So you do build
Like a
your
sea base?
yes underwater sea base, and you also build vehicles, which is very
You're
good.
getting blueprints and then kind of expanding out what tools you have and then eventually what buildings you have.
like building air pumps and
Yes.
all this other stuff.
You can
too.
eventually have like outposts and stuff out here, or you'll get a vehicle where you can breathe inside it. So it's a finite amount or whatever, but you still feel like you can venture out more and more as you keep getting new
And,
stuff.
and that's a lot of fun. The feeling that you're hitting like dark water, gets very kind of nerve wracking. And the deeper you go, obviously, the physics of light don't allow it to go deeper, so it gets very dark, kind of scary.
Okay.
The pressure gets a lot higher, and they use those systems well. And I think that the game, when I played it in early access, didn't have a lot of these things, and I'm glad they added it. They put in a breadcrumb trail of beacons that'll say like, hey, there's a distress beacon happening, and slowly but surely they get further out, and it kind of gives you this very simple breadcrumb trail to go, okay, usually when you go out there, you'll find a piece of tech or something that kind of pushes you along the tree a bit. That being said, there are points where I was like, I cannot find fucking gold anywhere,
Yes.
or I need more salt deposits, or okay, I can build this base, but I'm just building 800 storage cabinets in a circle. I'm not sure what to do. So it did hit that point in the game where, all right, I've almost got too much stuff here. You're kind of done with the breadcrumb trail. But then also the game takes some twists, and this is kind of why I wanted to make sure we have a spoiler warning. You go on land for a bit, and you start walking around on land, and there's this whole other part of exploring a base on land.
That is not Nautica.
That is Supranautica. And that gets weird. And that stuff happens there. So you're waiting to be rescued.
And do you eventually get onto your crashed ship that is like radioactive and
So
stuff?
you
Like
can build
I
a
imagine you eventually build
radiation
like
suit.
You can get
yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And that's always in the distance. You can
yeah,
see. Like
right.
I do like having that landmark the whole time from the
Yeah.
beginning. Like I need to be able to get there.
like the North Star. You
It's
can
like
like
they
navigate.
pretty much start you out looking at it.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I got to figure out a way to get
So
there.
you're on an alien water
You are
world?
on an alien
Okay,
world.
so there are no other people there?
No, the people. So you were on a big ship.
But you're not on Earth is what I mean.
You're not on
Yeah,
Earth,
yeah,
right? It is. You were on a big ship. It exploded. Escape pods went, and you're kind of trying to get together for a rescue operation, right? And throughout the course of that, that's where a lot of this narrative takes place. But you uncover interesting twists and turns. Though limited they might be, they do provide some interest in it. And I think that's what makes Subnautica, I think, stand out a bit from a lot of early access to, and also it came out.
Right, there's that
released.
too.
Yeah, and they're still working on it. It doesn't sound like they're done.
So the thing I'm most interested in that game is the VR support that they added later. Has anybody played it in VR?
It's got Vive support, right?
I
I should have tried that.
I think it's both. I think it's all the headsets on PC.
I bet some of that underwater stuff could be a bit
Yeah.
Is
terrifying.
it just a first-person game?
Yes.
Yeah. So like piloting a thing in VR is like the thing VR was made for, right?
Sounds cool, yeah.
You do get submarines.
So that sounds
There's a lot of
Super
scanning of alien.
Okay.
Scan all the
Okay.
fish.
Lot of
but
scanning.
also like a lot of like picking up fish and finding out ways to use the fish as tools and stuff. Like it's,
Yep, you drink the water from a fish because it sucks in water and filters it.
A lot of making like lines
Ew.
of pipes of oxygen and stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
like
I know I
creating
wanna,
tube
like,
networks so
building
you can. Yeah.
why did I not play
It's
this?
fun as hell.
because it also is very much
takes
a
a very long
survival
time to
game.
get up
Yes.
there,
and,
too. It's
it is
Seemed
not
like
as
a slow
rough.
start. I feel like I remember you prepping for it, and
Yeah.
it seemed like it took
It
quite
can
a
even-
while
yeah,
to get
Even
there.
that beginning stuff that takes a while, I really enjoyed because it was very relaxing to me. It was like not super high stress. It wasn't super demanding. You know, there wasn't a lot of, oh, I'm just like already overwhelmed by collecting 30 of this fish. It was just like, no, kind of grab what you can find and figure out what you can do with it as you go.
Yeah, it didn't have that like Minecraft thing if you play in the like normal survival mode or whatever, where it's like, oh, night's coming, now I got to hole up and creepers are coming. It's just kind of like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this at my own pace and
Except
hope
for the part where
everything
you
works out.
drown.
Well, that's what
horribly.
I'm saying. Like, it always will have the like the hunger and drowning stuff, but like you
let's
can take
tune
your
that
time
out.
with like your how quickly your base is coming along.
It comes
and everything.
along pretty quickly. It is like a less rock and stick than a lot of those rock and
Exactly.
sticks.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I personally have a category for it on this list.
I don't
Do you
think
think
so.
maybe best moment for some of the things you find on land?
Or maybe best
Is that-
debut.
I might have said best looking.
Looking
just
was
'cause-
maybe,
yeah,
but-
even there, like,
I don't think it's gonna hang.
I mean, you've said your piece, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't feel that strongly about it.
Okay.
Like the ambience is very neat and almost in a style, but I don't feel that strongly about it.
I will say that moment in the quick look that happened, which if you want to go see
Yes.
the quick look, you can see what that was. But there was a story thing that kind of happened unexpectedly there. That was like that was pretty fucking cool.
It sounds cool as hell.
Yeah.
If there was a best surviving category,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
would feel strongly
I
about
think
it.
you have just moved it onto my holiday to play list.
Yeah, for me, it kind of falls a little off of like winning a big award to like you should check this out. This is a good game that came out in
I think
2018.
the expansion they're doing is like frozen stuff.
Great, because I want to be trapped under ice, also underwater.
Yeah, lock it in.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Next on our list, Celeste. Talk about it.
I was not too hot on this one.
Really?
I like
Celeste.
I'm not gonna say I dislike it, but it was fine. But
To
I
me,
think
it feels like a pretty good one of those like
I-
Meat Boy clones.
yeah,
you know?
like-
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's like a good splatformer. I found that the more I played, the more mechanics that unlocked. I found it a little. I was a little weighed down by like the wind and the goop. I think it feels so good to play in the beginning. Like the simple kind of challenging splatformer is like very fun.
Wait, I was about to
very
ask if I
fast.
heard you correctly.
That's the genre of
That's
the
the
game.
genre.
The word
splatformer.
You don't
platformer.
splat.
You hit spikes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll splat.
I don't think
I
I'm
think
okay
it-
with this at all.
I think it feels very good to play. I definitely think it should be like on a list to talk
So-
about, at least for
so
best style.
The thing I was gonna say is like I don't dislike it, but I'm kind of with Dan. I just think it suffers by
It's-
there having been a lot of these before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sure.
but this isn't Super Meat Boy. Like
No.
this game is incredibly fair.
Yeah.
If
But I
nothing
feel
else.
Yes,
I feel
it-
like
So is Meat Boy. Like there are.
Well,
I don't
yeah, I
like
guess I
Meat
don't
Boy.
I
I love
Meat
Meat
Boy
Boy.
is unfair, but
Celeste.
I think Meat Boy is fair, but I also think Meat Boy is more overtly punishing.
Yes,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
not a game about like slamming your head against a level. It's a game about looking at it kind of.
Yeah.
So it does the braid thing of each world kind of has its own mechanic that you explore. Like the second one, you're warping through the star fields. There's the one when you get the double jump. There's like the catapult ones. And I feel like each world, it's more puzzly than
Yes,
a Meat
that is-
Boy.
it is 100% that.
I think
Meat
what-
Boy
what-
is all about fast reflexes, and this is
I
more
also-
like take the scene
yes.
in and figure out what to do.
I think with the best platformers, like whenever there's an optional thing, whether it's like, a green coin in a Mario 3D land or whatever or anything, I want to get everything. I want 100% every platformer because I just like jumping around and wall jumping and doing all that shit. This one, it's like I didn't think that was good enough. Like I would see strawberries and stuff in this game and be like, that just seems annoying. I'm not really going to go for that. It is certainly competent. It feels fine. I just don't think it does anything to elevate itself above a Meat Boy clone.
The one thing I think it really does stand out compared to those games, especially, is its story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I've heard
game,
a lot about the story.
when you play it through, it becomes, it starts out, it's just a girl wants to climb a mountain, and there's no real reason, there's no real rhyme to it. She just says it's something I have to do.
It's like a vision quest.
And then you kind of, we're gonna get into spoilers. We said it. The more you play with it, the more you kind of realize it's about like dealing with your life with a mental illness. It's about like kind of accepting the dark. So there's like a dark version of her that kind of follows her around, and she's chasing it off and trying to like keep it away. And then there's phone calls with her mom where she's worried about her. She's like, I know you've been having some issues lately. It's kind of like at the beginning of Night in the Woods when there's kind of allusions to there's something going on more here than it seems. But when you kind of hit that, I think it's in the 6th chapter where you kind of, the second to last one, where you confront the dark side of you and you realize like, this is part of me. I have to use it as a tool rather than try and suppress it, that you kind of start to realize this is about like, dealing with anxiety or depression. This is about, you can't run from yourself. Like you're literally running away from yourself in certain chapters. And then it comes to get like, I like the characters. I like Theo. I like the old lady. There's the guy who runs the hotel, the ghost guy who torments
really
you.
good.
He's really good. I just like, I was surprised that A, this game had a story. And
right.
B, that I was so attached to it. I feel like by the end you kind of, it's not over the top. It's not like, hey, look at this thing.
Totally,
That
yeah.
is
It's like
a big
the
theme.
characters are like kind of fun and interesting, even on its own. It works before you get to the twist, basically. And I thought it was really cool that it had, that it has like cool unlockables, like the B-side stuff. Like that's all really good shit. But then also
what
the
are they?
options for it's like additional.
Are they just levels? Or
So there are
anything else?
remixes on levels and with also a remix on the music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
I'm right now
fantastic.
going to nominate this game for
Yeah,
best
music,
music.
it should absolutely be in there.
I was going to say music also
Yeah.
for this, for sure. It sounds like story as well.
Yeah, I personally would push
I
for it
think
for
best
also-
debut is also a potential one for
totally.
this.
This game also really does a lot of really great stuff with like the accessibility
Yeah,
controls.
that's what I was getting at. It's
Like-
if you find it too hard,
Yes.
like you can really tone it down in ways that like I actually really like the way it handles it in game. It's like, hey, we try to design this to be hard, but like it's like we feel the difficulty is like a core part of the experience, but hey, look,
If you just
like,
want to
Enjoy it the way you
experience
want.
it,
if you just want to
Not
experience
everybody
the
wants
thing,
that.
yeah,
And I think that that's awesome that it's like, we are going to make this accessible for everyone and
Yeah.
not shame you for it.
and
You're
you
not
don't get like a
punished.
bad ending or anything.
No.
You get like a
It's
little
like-
stamp on your profile.
It's not about
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
yeah. I thought that was a cool way to handle
Yeah, I
it.
thought that was really rad.
Do
I
we
think-
think is there enough support for it for like a best game
I would-
nomination? 'Cause I feel
yeah,
like there's
yeah,
enough
I-
people
I-
here
I
that feel
think
pretty
it's-
strongly
We don't
about
have
it.
to hash that out.
It'll
If-
probably be on my list.
If anybody
Yes.
wants to add it, we can just add it.
Let's add
Okay.
it.
Let's
I
add
think
it.
it feels good to play. I can appreciate why a lot of people like it. I didn't finish it, and I had some issues with it later on. I found it like kind of weigh itself down a little bit, but I really liked it a lot. I think it does a lot of cool stuff.
Okay, so we said best music. Do we think best debut?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think definitely best debut.
Do we think best story?
Again, we
think
don't
so.
have to debate that.
Well, I know. I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
yeah.
like, are we adding it
we're
to
just
these
recounting
categories just to
and
make
just
sure
saying.
that we have it listed?
Yeah.
Do we want to do it for like a best style?
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically Towerfall, you know.
Yeah.
But then there's the
was it
there's
the
the
Tower
hidden
Fall?
It
game.
is.
Oh,
It's
is
not
it?
I know,
developer?
the little
I think it
hidden
is.
game.
Oh, yeah.
Shit. All right, there you go.
I do think maybe for best moment or sequence, they have the little hidden version of it that you can find. It's
Oh, the
a
Pico
mini-
8.
version.
Yeah, the little
Yeah.
mini version. I think that would be
Yeah.
a cool moment or sequence.
I agree with that.
Let's list it on there.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I have written it down in numerous places.
Towerfall is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Towerfall's okay. Yeah,
Celeste
I think,
is better.
Oh no.
Ooh, that's
I think I'm with you. Like
Yeah,
I
it's fine.
totally respected it, and
Yeah.
there wasn't anything bad about it. I just
Yeah.
maybe just a little fatigue with hard platformers.
Yeah, there's better ones out
I
there.
just don't like the Ouya controller. So
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, that's where you're wrong.
yeah.
Okay.
What's next?
Oh boy.
Oh, we got a big one.
Y'all like that Goku?
Which one?
Stupid. He's stupid, but he's a hero.
That's
Okay.
right. A bad dad.
What if?
Yeah, he's a terrible father.
Wait, is he a dad?
What if I could offer you?
Who's
Oh,
Goku's
yeah.
son?
well,
I
you've
thought
got
Goku was like a
Goten
teenager.
and
It's Gohan.
Gohan and Goten,
Gohan.
but then you get Teen Gohan.
What
I
if
think
I could
thought they
offer
were
you
all
a
the same
game?
person, but different versions.
That's
of
fair.
them.
That is a fair.
Spiky hair, Super Saiyan?
What if I could offer
Yeah.
you a game with like
Six.
4 Gokus
Six.
or 6?
Oh,
Six
yeah.
Gokus.
We've had those for years, Brad.
There's a Goku in there?
But what if they made
What
one of
if they
those
were
games that was
good?
actually good? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys! It's so nice to have a good Dragon Ball game. Like it really is.
There have been decades of terrible ones.
Yeah.
I've gone back to that E3 where they showed the trailer, and me and you were just staring at it, zoning out. And then you are looking at it, and you're like, "Wait, this actually looks good." And we're like, "What the hell? Why is this guy turning the sky into chocolate?" And it's just this crazy time capsule. Like, oh, if we only knew.
Yeah.
The time before and the time after.
Yes.
We should be clear. We're talking about Dragon Ball Fighters.
Yes.
The ArcSys 3-on-3 fighting game featuring all your favorite Dragon Ball guys.
The game that out-marveled Marvel.
Not all my favorite Dragon Ball
Mr.
guys.
Mr. Satan is not in there.
Satan's not in the
No,
game.
how did they not put Mr. Satan
Right?
in there? Yeah.
Right?
Maybe
Seriously.
DLC.
You don't open with the showstopper. That's why.
He's the
It's
strongest.
a hard balance. It's our, he's got.
He'd be too powerful. I
He'd
think.
be too powerful.
Is Vanilla there?
couldn't make the town, brother.
So here's my argument in favor of this game. I don't give a shit about Dragon Ball, and I had a blast playing Dragon Ball Fighters. That game was super
totally
fun.
fair, yeah.
It looks awesome. It does it like the fan service element. I mean, seems like it is great for the people who love that stuff.
Even in the single player, like which I normally write off of fighting games, there was some fun fan servicey stuff there. Because
Yeah.
it's like a new plot. It's about they're making clones of Goku and all of them, and you got to go fight the clones. And
Oh boy, but that's
good to hear,
like
though.
that story falls apart and
does.
becomes the biggest drag in the world. I mean,
I didn't finish it.
Yeah, I felt like I
Holy
heard.
cow.
I felt like I heard not great things.
I-
about
I was
the story.
like-
I like some of the
Story.
early moments,
Yeah.
but
If there was a category for like okay story but worse story going through it, like okay, like
the
this-
mode is not great.
so bad.
oh yeah, not like the technical aspects of the motor.
But like it's kind of an awesome. Like they do a great job with an original tale in a Dragon Ball Z game because those never happen. Like you always get the same retelling of every saga, and it's voice acted well. It is animated well in the cutscenes.
you got a new character who kind of fits.
And then you fight clones for like 82 battles. That is like, this sucks. This is the worst. And you're just chewing through it. That part was terrible.
But the part where you fight.
It's
It's
good.
really good, and Alex is
so
not
good.
wrong. Like they out-marveled Marvel.
Yeah.
In a time when Marvel versus Capcom Infinite exists. Oh God. This actually did a much better job of being that crazy, over-the-top 3-on-3 fighter. That
Big jumps.
Marvel wasn't at Evo. This
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
There we go.
And on top of that, it had the hypest finals of anything at Evo this year.
really
yeah,
did.
that speaks to the game really well.
Yeah.
It's easily accessible. It's got characters that everybody knows and loves, or they're at least familiar with.
Yeah.
Speaking on the accessibility, I think the
Yeah.
auto combo stuff is really solid in this game. I feel like it's not
Totally.
unfair.
It's not unfair. It's not overpowered.
It is
It's
beautiful
easy
to
get
look
into.
at.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
beautiful.
The supers.
Like Arxis has
like-
been making amazing looking games for a while, and
Yeah.
and
This is still among their top best work for sure.
Yep.
Those
It is-
intros where they fly in and the like fists come
Oh
together.
yeah,
it's
and the like
awesome.
finishers where they get
Yeah.
launched into mountains.
God, yeah, those are so good.
I do. I will. My grievance with it, and I like a Dragon Ball Z game that lets you start as a base level character
Okay.
and then power up during the match by using a super meter into your Super Saiyan.
So like a power level that goes up.
Yes, like a power level that goes up instead of having to pick the individuals.
it's a little weird.
So previous ones have done that, but they're
think-
not.
Sure.
But think about it in terms of
Of gameplay.
Because I like popping. I like popping to the next
Oh,
level.
here comes
All
the
right.
DBZ
Well,
expert.
think about it in
Yeah.
terms of like there was a long period of time there where you didn't really see Goku use some of the moves he used early on. So pre-Super Saiyan Goku,
Yeah.
he'll learn the Kaioken
Yeah.
and do that sort of stuff.
Maybe a
And
spirit
maybe he's
bomb.
more of a speed character, a spirit bomb. But then later on,
Yeah.
he's kind of moved away from that into some deeper shit.
Yeah.
So I think
There's no
there's
reason for him.
enough difference there to where either it would be a really complicated stance change that would be kind of like weird to do, or at some point you go like, actually, we're just going to break them up. So if you want this version of the character, we're going to balance it anyway to make it, because it's a fighting game, you have to.
Yeah, it's tough. I understand the problems in designing it, but I think there is something I still really enjoy about popping into
Yes.
the next, like have the meter go
you
up.
are also totally fucking right.
And like that, the cartoon knows it as well.
Yeah.
Like you want to see that pop.
Until you get to 3 and you're like, this hair looks terrible.
As
Or
the
his
powers
eyebrows.
up-
Like, it's like, what the fuck is that?
Does
me
the
go to
base
4.
Kamehameha, does the power of that go up as his Saiyan level goes up?
definitely.
Okay, it definitely
it's
does.
gotta
So it's
be.
not just like it does 50 damage
Absolutely.
whether he's level 3 or
Also,
base
the-
Goku.
I mean, we're not talking about the game. In the game is balanced. So
right.
that
No,
you-
I'm
you
sorry.
know,
I just
but
want to talk
in
about Dragon
real-
Ball
in
Z.
real
Do
life.
you want to talk about Dragon Ball Z.
but in
maybe
the,
later,
in
I
the
don't
in
know.
the game, and I feel like this is stuff actually that you might appreciate now. Like you can do the assists on the Kamehameha with Gohan to come in and do the father-son ones.
They do the
Yeah.
they do the thing.
They totally do the
Yeah.
yeah.
the cell.
and like
His
that's
level
very
3
cool.
is the father-son
The
Kamehameha.
assist stuff is really good.
There's a lot of that, like kind of fan service and kind of small things that
And
if
like,
you have
or
the
like
right
when you
assist.
start a match, if you have Gohan on point and you're fighting against a team with Cell, they do the intro where he kills Android 16, and he's like, "Do it for the nature and the birds," and then Cell like,
His head is like on the ground. Or,
Yeah.
oh,
It's-
that's great.
Like you have to pick the right background. Like there are certain semblances of characters and backgrounds that get you like extra moments.
or like if you
And
pick a team
so
with
it's like-
Goku against Frieza, but don't have Krillin in your party, they start by having Frieza kill Krillin, and
Do you
then
see him
Goku
blow
goes
up?
Super Saiyan.
Because they only showed that 16 times in the show.
Yeah.
So all right.
or like
I
where-
could stand to see it another 100 more.
or like where I think it's Krillin's assist is just dropping in a sensu bean, right? Like he just
he
comes
throws
in.
a rock or a sensu beam.
Yeah,
in,
and
and
not
it's
being
like,
able to press a button.
Yeah.
is it too late to add a category for best Goku?
Goku of the year.
Because there's 6 in this one.
I feel like I need a shower.
Okay.
Yeah, I've understood
All right.
none of these.
So I
words.
think best style, it definitely belongs.
yeah.
Yes.
I would put it.
I would argue
Oh,
for best look.
I would also
Yeah.
argue for best looking.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think it belongs on our best game list.
I do too.
Does he use the Falconer music?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've played it, so I haven't actually checked back on the game that much since they started putting out DLC and stuff. And because honestly, at some point, because it is that kind of Marvel equivalent, like after about the first month or so, I came to realize I was never going to win online again.
Yeah.
because like people got way better than I'll ever get. And
They
it
got
just
way
became
better at
that
harnessing
game. And
the
it's
You
like,
went in the
chaos.
hyperbaric time chamber.
I
yeah.
can
You only
already
get to go
I can only
twice.
go twice in my life, and I already went once. So I'm going to save it in case I really need it some other time.
for the sequel.
My understanding is that like the competitive scene has generally liked the way they have rebalanced the game since then, and I think the DLC has generally been well received for the most part. It seems like that game is ongoing and is evolving in ways that the scene likes.
Yeah, it's creating very hype moments at tournaments.
Yeah, it's that, and it's also, this is a niche thing, but it's really cool to me that it's bringing a lot of the FGC together. You have Tekken players, you have KOF players, you have Melee players, like Leffen got in top 8 at EVO, and he's a Melee player. Like, you have people from all over united under, like, the love of DBZ, which is some power of friendship ass stuff that I am totally down for.
It is both the most the easiest thing and both the most incredible thing that a company was able to unlock the potential to make a fantastic over-the-top fighting game from a fantastic fighting over-the-top series, right? Like a series that is all about being over-the-top and all about fights. Finally somebody got
Big
it right.
flashy
It's
fights.
really crazy. Like the crazy thing is that it took this long.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. When you
the
think about
technology
like,
finally got there.
Dragon Ball GT and Ultimate Battle 22 and a lot of the stuff that came along. Though
There are a couple of good ones in there. Like there are some decent
but
ones.
that's- there's a couple
SNES
of
game,
decent ones.
That SNES game, Hyper Dimension. So that one, not bad. Not
But
bad.
there was a
Scientifically, I heard it was all right.
Yeah.
This one took the world by storm.
The Budokai games, I think they're fun. But
They're
then
fun.
The behind the back third person fighter like multiplayer ones were terrible. I did not like
Garbage.
those. They were not good.
Those Budokai games,
But
are
they
garbage.
they're not all bad.
It was
The
fun.
Tenkaichi
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
It's fun seeing them all fight.
But anyway, yeah, it's great. They implement the stuff from the show, fun in it, the dashing, the encounter stuff, the
Instant transmission.
Yes, it is all. As somebody who has enjoyed the show, to see that stuff is fun, and to see it used in a way that makes sense in a balanced fighting game is impressive.
It's they find a way to do the fan service without but having it make sense in the context of the game. Like it still serves the game.
And they also
for the
just
most
made a
part.
really solid fighter on top of that.
Yep.
Since we, sorry.
Go ahead.
Since we mentioned Evo, I'd almost argue that it could also fit into best moment because of that final round of Sonic Fox.
Best moment is
versus-
stuff
yeah.
that is legit in the game, not
Okay,
stuff
got
that
it.
not.
But I understand why you would nominate that because you're
Yes.
totally right.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a
This is
moment.
the most hypest I've ever gone watching people play
Yeah.
a game.
That was some cool shit.
I really enjoyed the 3 times I played that on stream, but the one thing I found a little off-putting as a very casual player of fighting games is just how fucking much visual information is taking place.
Oh yeah,
all the
it's
time.
chaos.
going
It's
on.
totally chaos.
Like it's kind of. I'm not saying I couldn't get used to it, but the thing that stopped me from picking it up at home was just like I wasn't confident that I could ever start to like read what was happening in a way that could help me get good at the game. You know what I mean?
Part of
I could
the,
see
it's
that
part of the
with tag
reason.
game.
Yeah, it's part of the reason. Yeah, tag games and Marvel style games. Like that's part of why after that first month I was like, oh geez, because you get to the point where like I'm not even 100% sure what's happening to me.
Yes. Don't get me wrong, it looks cool as fuck. Like it was amazing to watch and often play, but yeah, it was like I don't think I could ever get good at this because I can barely keep track of what's happening.
That's fair.
Yeah. Reasonable.
But then that also makes it very incredible to watch professional or
Yeah.
people
Oh,
who are
yeah,
very-
yeah.
when you have those like hit stops and like the somebody up in the air just getting knocked, and somebody coming in from the side, somebody coming in from the side. And you're like, I don't even know what's happening, but this looks like somebody's getting their ass kicked.
And you could argue it would be a disservice to Dragon Ball to not make it that ridiculous and over the top. But that does kind of go to playability a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that more later when we.
But yeah,
narrow it down.
They made an amazing Dragon Ball fighting game.
Hell yeah.
Like what? What?
We got several categories for this one. Right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for you.
Why's that?
Speaking of
Dragon Ball Fighters?
good games
Uh-huh.
coming out
Oh, we're going to talk about
That Jason likes.
We're going to talk about the
that
Monster
didn't
Hunter.
used to be good.
Yeah, it does have kind of a legacy, doesn't it?
Monster
kind of
Hunter
a stigma
World.
attached to it.
They put out a Monster Hunter game.
That-
For everybody.
I started to say for everybody, but let's not.
We'll get
Let's
to
not
that
be
later.
hasty.
Still not for me.
It's
Still a lot
but
of bullshit, but it was the first one I was able to get into and like.
All right,
Yeah.
that speaks volumes.
It was the first one I was able to get really into after somebody really explained how to get into the cooperative and go into the map and join a party.
The game
and
does not do that for you.
The things around the action, the menus, a lot of stuff is not great.
Yeah, there's
feel
still
like-
a bit of a learning curve.
Yes.
But the core,
yeah,
it looks great.
the core
Like,
loop.
the
You know,
fights are.
and they've dispensed with so many of the just just generally poopy moments.
Hey. What?
Hey, I'm able to. I can say this. stuff.
He's played far more than I have, but this is like my.
Oh, it's the language.
Fourth?
I'm just so severe.
Yeah.
I think this is like my fourth Monster Hunter game, and he's 100% right that like whatever faults this game still has, and there are a lot of them in like matchmaking and stuff, like the things they have streamlined in this, like holy shit.
Yeah, when we talk about streamlining and just like adding quality of your life enhancements and just like shaking up a really tried and true formula for Capcom, they really did a great job. This is kind of a gamble for them. They had this really strong pillar of Monster Hunter games, love them or hate them, but kept them afloat for many years in Japan.
And sold very well. Like they
sold
had a
very
fan
well,
base. Like the
yeah.
idea of taking Monster
shaking
Hunter and
that up.
trying to make it more accessible. Like
Yep.
the danger is that you lose your core.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
It takes.
And
it
I don't
takes.
think they lost many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're risking your hardcore fan base by maybe oversimplifying. You're also taking a gamble that making a big budget Monster Hunter is a waste of time and money because
Sure. They've
like-
been handheld for a while.
I mean, there was a big argument to be made that this series is just so impenetrable that the mass market would
But
not
with
want
them,
it.
yeah, not
But it became their highest selling game ever.
totally.
There are
This was?
Yeah,
This is Capcom's highest selling game
I will
ever?
double check.
Yeah.
but
I
believe so, yeah.
I'm
Monster Hunter is
Absolutely.
very popular.
And that's
I
the thing
know,
is that
but
like those other games
Capcom's been making
did
games for a
sell.
while.
I mean, they primarily sold, I think, in Japan, but like they had their audience here, and like there's a dedicated fan base that has
Yes.
loved these games forever.
I
More
have
than like a Street Fighter 2?
confirmed it is Capcom's
Well,
highest
it's like
selling game.
spread across all
guess-
modes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, but still. Holy shit.
Wild.
Millions and millions, 5 or 8
Yeah,
million,
like
something
what
like
a
that.
what
They're
a
making a damn movie.
crazy
Yeah.
success story.
Yeah, they are.
Well, look, I'm not saying anything good about the movie. I'm just saying they're making it.
This was a
them
lot
not,
of fun.
Yeah, with them not being beholden to like being a handheld unit, they were able to utilize these next gen consoles and have for some really spectacular like bombastic moments with some of these creatures and. They kept some of the charm as well. It wasn't just like a Western action kind of fucking game. They still kept some of the quirkiness of the
Fucking Chef
Monster
Cat.
Hunter stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And made that stuff work.
Yeah.
Too.
Palico.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to submit that for best, like Chef Cat making the food for best moment.
He's
So I
great.
actually have a
That's
different
pretty good.
Monster Hunter best moment, and it is I don't know if any of you guys use the charge
several.
shield, but
Charge Blade?
the charge
I
blade,
tried.
the one that you put into the shield to charge up.
Yes.
and then so connecting
I
with
started with that weapon. That was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea.
if you nail all of the things and finally get your like fully charged blade and connect with that,
Yep.
it feels so fucking good. That is such a great
you had to
moment.
work for
You
that.
had to work for it. You had to do all your stuff, charge your shield, charge your sword in your shield, get it back out,
And stay
turn
alive
turn
the
it into the
entire
big
time.
axe thing, and then it lands in like a straight line. And if you get that hit, oh, it feels so good.
I'd also like to submit flipping around with the insect glaive, like as somebody who never played Monster Hunter, just like once I finally got a handle on it and I could reliably get on the back of a monster with that thing, it fucking ruled.
I love
It's funny
the
as hell to
diversity of the
I had never
weapons
used the
in
insect
this.
glaive and I didn't even really know what it did. And the first time I saw it, like I was fighting something and I saw somebody just like flipping around. What the hell is going on here? What are they doing? This is broken. Yeah. You know, I'm not a series veteran. I've tried several times, so I can't speak to exactly what they did to make it more accessible the way like Jason might be able to. But there is something, because this is like the third or fourth Monster Hunter. I've told myself, like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. I know this is supposed to be a big thing. I really want to understand this. And I always fell off the previous ones. And so I don't know what the specific thing is they changed on this one. But yeah, I got way into this. I really, really enjoyed this.
Again, not as diehard as Jason, but just off the top of my head, like on the 3DS, like every map was broken up into like a dozen tiny maps.
Throw like a paintball on the thing.
So you would hit a load screen every time you moved to an area. The monster could just disappear through one of those exits and vanish. So you'd have to like throw a paintball to track it.
Yeah.
The map was a physical item that you had to pick up before you went on a mission, and if you forgot, you just didn't have a map.
Whetstones.
Whetstones were a consumable item, and you could run out of whetstones mid-mission.
Yeah,
just fucking awful.
Like trying to play those, especially like those early Monster Hunter games. That was when I tried a couple of times to get into it. It was just
impossible.
Impenetrable sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is still a dense game. There's still a lot of stuff to.
I was going to say when you talked. So what's the other weapons? There's the
switch axe.
charge blade, switch axe.
I used the switch axe.
Switch axe I ended up being okay with, but I spent a bunch of time in the tutorial area or the training area with the charge blade, and like I never fully got the concept
Fill
of
vials
like, depositing charge.
That tutorial zone
the tutorial zone is
could have
bad.
been a lot
like,
better.
They don't do a great job.
So
of
that was the
explaining it.
first weapon I used because everybody was talking about the switch axe or whatever, and I was like, well, this must be what they're talking about because I wasn't sure. This sword changes into an axe.
Yeah.
So I just stuck with it because I thought I was an idiot, being like, well, this is the one everybody's using. I'm gonna do it, and I loved it. And like, it had a fighting game feel to it.
It seems to have the reputation of being the most satisfying weapon, but like
feels so good when you. It really does have a fighting game combo feel to it.
But I ended up having to go to YouTube to try to understand it, and just
I did too, but that was okay.
It became so much work that I just changed weapons. Ultimately, I wish that they explained some of that.
Yeah,
stuff
I feel like that's kind of how that's like that game summed up for me. It was like it became so much work. I just like there were so many moments where it felt like it was starting to be fun. Like I made this cool character that I was very excited for, and then the first thing I did was put on a helmet and armor, and I didn't see her ever again.
Characters look great in that game.
They do,
really nice
but they just
character
cover
creator.
them up.
But yeah, you're right.
There's an option to remove helmet and cutscenes and stuff, and like
but
walking
still.
around the overworld.
Yeah.
You do get to make your own cat too.
Huh?
You do get to make your own
a
cat.
cat, yes. But the cat called me like Meowster, which I was not on board
That's fantastic.
for.
That's perfect.
I really wanted to like this game because it does seem like it very much rewards you for the time you put into it. Like Vinny was saying, like if you learn these weapons, it can feel very satisfying. But for me, it felt very much like I was fighting like a bullet sponge and just chasing it from area to area. And then like another monster would come up and eat it. And it's like, well, what a waste of my time.
Yeah, the monsters are pretty damage spongy.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I got at the point in that game where they basically, it felt like they did a reset and they're like, okay, do it all again, but the monsters are harder now, right?
or it's like a plus or whatever it was.
And get the same armor, but now it's like second
there's
tier.
that old Monster Hunter.
Yeah, so that's where I was like, okay, I think I got my money's worth, and I think I feel good about it.
That's around. Like I got a little bit further into that, and was like, I've had a really great time with this, and I ended up starting over on PC and playing a little bit there with different weapons and stuff like that too. But yeah,
in defense of that, like there is certainly some overlap, but there are so many more monsters that you still haven't even encountered.
Totally,
yet. Elder dragons and such, and there's lots more to unlock.
Oh, but then there's like those missions where you have to fight. You have to like man the cannons and fight that big.
I don't like those.
Those were a little bit of a bummer.
The first time it was like a little exciting, because you're fighting this huge.
Yeah,
monster
it was
or
the
whatever,
scale of it was incredible.
Yeah, but you do have to do that a couple times.
And then it's like there were a couple times in that mission where I was like, did this break? Is something broken?
Yeah, you're standing there.
It did break for me. It's just weird.
I think those big hunts can feel like very damage spongy, but I think that is one of the things I like about this is some of those are 40 minutes long or whatever, and it stays engaging throughout. And then when you do finally slay it and it goes into its death throes or you catch it, you do get this. One of the
cooler parts about that though is that like that fight doesn't have to be 40 minutes.
Oh, if you do,
you're
some,
fucking
crazy
really
bullshit.
good at it. Like you're
not,
if you're really on it, or
properly,
and that comes back to kind of my point of that game was really fun when I was playing with at least one other person. Like just being able to coordinate stuff. Not both of us could be bad at the game, but it was still just much more enjoyable because we're talking, we're communicating, we're talking about how we want to take the monster down. Like, oh, cover me, I need to heal, I need to do my whetstone or whatever.
Yep.
When I went back in and started trying to play single player, because either my friends had moved past my power level, or it was just impossible to figure out how to get a party going.
Yeah.
I found the game much less enjoyable.
I think that is the elephant in the room, which was alluded to a
not
little bit
that much
earlier.
of
Is
an
that
elephant.
the entire multiplayer framework in that game is astonishingly bad. Like,
Yeah.
it's
It
insane
really
is.
how
Yeah.
bad it is.
Yeah,
My apologies.
No,
but
no.
I feel bad saying that, but
I'm
like
with you.
it's-
Like once you got it, like you got it.
well, I don't know that I ever got it fully.
Well, everyone had to have seen the cutscenes
Yeah.
before.
Oh, I
forgot about that
Yeah.
part. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about like what it took to make the equivalent of a guild and invite people to
Do I
it.
have to
and, like,
post a thing
it
to
was
this
so
board
hard to
and then
figure out.
somebody has to...
I mean,
here-
so hard to figure out how to just get somebody to join your guild that I kind of gave up.
So here's the thing: is that a game
They had to be online when you were online.
it can be the most accessible one of these games, and also still in certain areas deeply impenetrable.
it's-
like
it's
both
more
things
work.
can be true.
There's more work to be done.
It's still
Yeah.
both of those things for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, because I feel it was a game that everybody was getting very excited about, and to his detriment, like everybody was like, "Well, let's all get together. Let's
Yeah.
go
Give me
play
the
this."
one, yeah.
And
Give me
if
the
somebody
one.
had started 10 minutes before you would not be able to play with them because they were then 10 minutes ahead in the cutscenes, and you had to wait for them to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do this. Okay, well, you got to do this trek to get from this side of the map to open up the next camp. So
Do I have to shoot this flare gun?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work.
I mean, fast travel was a huge thing to add to this, though. Like the fact that you could
yeah.
spawn at different camps was a
Yeah.
massive
well,
improvement.
well, that's what I mean. Like, so to have somebody be restricted from joining your game because they haven't
Because of the
opened that thing up
cutscene
yet.
Situation. Yeah.
yeah,
but-
that's rough. Like
that-
I was super excited about starting a guild for that thing, and I gave up after adding like 6 people because it was so much work.
That being said, though, like another fantastic moment in that game, and I think this game for me is just a lot of moments that don't string together to be a fantastic experience for me, but the individual moments are great. When you finally see the two giant monsters fight, like for the
Yeah.
first time,
Yeah.
like they just wrap around each other, or they're lifting each other up in the air,
And
it's,
then environmental things that can happen too.
Yeah.
it's really amazing to watch,
Yeah,
and like
yes.
just seeing that happen, like a Diablos fighting, I don't know, a Rathalos. I don't know if those are in the same map or not. Those are two names I remember from the
They
game.
can be. They can be.
Is really cool to watch. It really makes it good on that thing that these are
feel
beasts.
dynamic.
Yep.
Yeah, like this is a world that is happening without you, and maybe they're scripted, maybe they're not, but they look awesome.
Yeah.
And while they scaled back a little bit on just like number of locations, they've really made these locations very livable. You can tell that these monsters, are native to this environment or whatever. They added a lot of verticality as well, which is something kind of new to the series. Like I said, it was a big gamble in what they did, and I think it really, really paid off.
I will say, like, I didn't thoroughly enjoy the game, but I am totally open to the idea of one day really loving the Monster Hunter. Like, this showed me what Monster Hunter could be.
It created a
really
path.
good
Yeah.
glimpse.
Yeah.
When
I
they
think so.
eventually inevitably like make a sequel to this or some kind of follow up from this, like I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good.
I
I
would
wanna see what
love
they
to
learn
play
from
another
this.
one of these.
It got us all looking forward to a new Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
which,
That's
it's
all
just
I
like
can ask.
what?
So it's not the next Monster Hunter because
Yeah.
that's that weird switch.
Well, yeah, no, that's already out.
Okay.
No, not old Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Like this did not do any good.
No.
If anything,
It seemed like there were multiple best moments out of this one.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
That's a tough thing. They're very individual.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it seems like there were a couple of specific ones that were nominated, like the
Cat's
the
cook-
cat's
chef,
chef.
cat's cooking.
Yeah, I put that on there.
Okay. Is this a best game category?
yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Sure. I will put it on the list.
First month of this year made me like Monster Hunter and anime.
That's wild. It's wild,
It's a
thing,
good
man.
January.
Scary.
Yeah.
We are in some uncharted territory
It's been
here,
a
man.
weird year.
Yeah.
I was gonna say real quick that I liked how irreverent some of their weird add-on stuff was, like the fact that you could dress up your Palico like a robot from Horizon.
Yeah.
Sure.
And get
Oh,
the
yeah.
Aloy armor, and that actually brings me to asking if we should put this on the best ongoing game list because they.
I don't know enough about it.
Well,
Yeah.
Jason could speak to that. I know they added a lot, and as far as I
they've
know,
been
it's all
adding
free.
festivals. Yeah, it is all free. I think I could make a case for it. I think so.
might-
Okay.
Between the DLC costumes and weapons and new monsters that are coming out, I think there's a case there.
Specifically, it's the part where all the gameplay relevant stuff is free. That
Yeah,
it
that's-
really
that's-
Yeah.
makes me feel like it's
That helps a lot.
worth talking about.
Okay.
You can throw a Hadouken.
That's
You have to pay
Oh,
for
boy.
that. though,
Yeah.
don't you?
Oh,
I can do a fucking uppercut.
Bah.
Yeah, not everything's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. Next up, the first game from February is the remake of Shadow of the Colossus.
It's really good. It's pretty much. I will
very
just
much
say,
that
though,
game.
It's kind of just that game.
It is really that
It
game.
looks
Yes.
gorgeous.
It looks incredible.
I played through the whole
It
thing
is
again.
Visually, it is really something.
Yeah, and like, one of the things that marred the original release, as great as it was that like they were doing some big stuff that the PS2 couldn't quite always handle. And so to have it looking this good and running this smooth, I think it takes one of the best games of all time and just makes it like definitively the best way to play it.
I'm sorry.
Just prettier, or like
I mean, it is certainly
Well,
it also
you can do
runs
performance
fidelity.
mode or fidelity
Yeah,
mode.
on a Pro, it'll run at 60 FPS.
Yeah, and that's how I played it. And like, so it was just a joy to be able to play this game the way it looks.
Specifically because
it
the
looked good.
original PS2 release was a mess. Like
It
just
was.
ran like garbage.
But it was still considered a classic, even
Yeah.
though it had all those
Absolutely,
technical
yeah,
limitations. And so to have that removed
that's
from
what
the
I
thing,
mean. Like this is the version of record of this game.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that this isn't like a big fidelity improvement and that isn't cool to be able to kind of like pick apart the details of the world way more than you could in the PS2 version. I am also just a little bit of one of those people that's like, I loved what they did with that game with the limitations of the PS2, like the way they sort of just squoze every bit of power out of that thing to make the weird sort of looking, like I realized there were limitations to it, but I liked how they went about that with that game. I realized the performance was not great.
It was a very late generation game, and they were doing. I mean, there are technical breakdowns of what they did on the PS2 out there that are fascinating because they were stretching that thing in ways it was not meant to be stretched.
Well, it was probably something that was like way more impressive then than it would be now.
But also there are parts of that original game that literally run at 15 frames.
I know.
It is rough.
it's crazy because like the controls have always been a little bit weird in that game with the grip and all that
Yeah,
stuff. And so, like,
that's a
what's
little weird to come back to.
It was weird back then. It's still weird now. But I
Yeah.
think the important thing is like the feeling of what made people love that game. Like when you get on, you get that grip and it lifts you up and the music swells. Like that is just as effective now, and like not even in a nostalgia way. It's still just like holy.
Like
shit.
you don't like to use the word epic that much these days, but
Right,
like
but
that,
it is.
that
100%.
qualifies for sure.
This is my first time playing this game, and the scale is something really awesome to experience and witness. But also coming from like all these Uncharted games and all these Tomb Raider games, these games with like a lot of really good smooth climbing. The climbing was really, it kind of deterred me from finishing the game just because it didn't feel like it was an intentional challenge. It felt like the controls were janky, and they just like not. It didn't play as I wanted it to, considering how much of that game is climbing.
Yeah,
I
do
do
think
think
that feels dated.
I think the strenuousness of it is intentional,
Right.
but the way
yes,
they
I can
went
tell the
about
difference
it,
between the intentionality and it not being intentional, and there are plenty of parts where it's like janky and
It's for sure
hard and
wonky.
like I'm
Yeah.
trying to climb and it's not doing what I think it's supposed to be
Sometimes
doing.
it just doesn't feel
some
good
of the ways,
at all.
Some of the ways the character interacts with like rocks and stuff,
Right.
like
Yeah.
stumbling around is not.
It can be weird, but like the difference between this and like an Uncharted type thing is I feel like Uncharted, like the climbing and stuff, just kind of serves to move things along, and you get these vistas and all that. It's not like the climbing in Uncharted isn't like a difficult puzzle.
I'm not
whereas, like,
saying that this
is-
should be easy like Uncharted is. I'm saying it should feel as good as Uncharted with some challenge as well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there is some challenge there that is absolutely intentional, but there is also a lot of challenge there that is me fighting against the controls.
I mean, it's the
Yes,
same thing
yeah.
that like The Last Guardian had, where it's like you can see what the intentionality there is, but
Yes.
sometimes the thing just doesn't work the way
Right.
it even
And
seems like it is
considering
intending to.
How much of this game is climbing these huge beasts and how like fantastic it is to sort of feel so small on them and to really conquer them. It was a little frustrating that it was kind of marred by sort of janky controls.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
fair.
they set out to make the same game look
Yes.
better, for better or for worse.
And
Right.
it's fair because you
it
can
ends up feeling a little dated.
You can, she's right. You can have the right idea of like, okay, I get the idea of what I'm supposed to do here. I've solved the puzzle. I wait for him to stop thrashing, and then I
Yes.
jump over here. And sometimes it's like, what the fuck? I meant to do
Right.
this.
I guess, Actually, in that sense, this is not really a true remake so much as just an incredible coat of paint on the same game.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It was nice to play it again, but I wouldn't put it necessarily above like just a really good re-release or Code of Paint on a classic.
It's also, I don't know, it's not really a fair standard to hold this to, but with the benefit of the last, like, what is it, 12 years of hindsight, like this really makes you realize how barren that world is.
Yeah, but that's cool,
Which
I
is
think.
like, I know that's the point of the game.
Yeah.
Like,
But I
that's
also
fine.
think going back to what I don't know, Jeff, if you said it, but I think that was an interesting use of the hardware at the time because they were squeezing so much out. So you have to make that world fairly barren, but it worked into the aesthetic of
or the feel, the atmosphere.
Well,
the
I
tone.
think that's just what Ueda games are at this point. Like, all of them have been like these sort of ruined worlds that you're kind of working through, and that's just kind of even with the power of the PS4, like that's still very much what like Last Guardian felt like.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's almost like a backhanded compliment. Like this world now looks so good and has such cool atmosphere that I wish there was more reason to spend more time in it.
Yeah.
But literally all you do is ride 2 boss fights and fight the bosses.
Yeah.
And find like 20 lizards or whatever.
I'm sad.
I'm really looking forward to playing it for the first time. Like it's great that this is an option here because I've wanted to play this game for a really long time, and now that there's like this enhanced version, I have a reason to.
I thought maybe that I would go to this as someone who did not like it originally and think like, oh, well, maybe that with the benefit of time and maybe they've made some more meaningful changes to it. But I think with the client, I did not like that game then. I don't like it now.
If it was the controls and stuff that you didn't like back then,
That's
this
not
is
gonna
not
change
going to
it.
fix
Yeah.
that.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still fantastic that they did this.
Yeah.
I think.
This game still makes me sad playing it. Not that it's a bad game, just like when you're just destroying.
I feel
these
triumphant
things.
every
Yeah.
time we take them down. It's like
you and
beating
I-
like
It's almost like
Honda or
it's almost
something.
like there's different ways you can perceive how the story goes.
I'd say like Punch Out. It's just like big boss fights one
Yeah.
after
Just
another.
take them down.
What's the developer? Blue Point.
Yeah.
Yes.
That did
Oh, right,
this.
yeah.
Like I think it's kind of neat. Like they talked about how they were able to ramp up their like art pipeline doing this project so that they can now do this for other games. And like as cynical as we get about games being resold to us over and over every generation, like this is such a vast improvement on that game.
Yeah,
like,
it can be done really well.
it would be cool to see this with some other. I think they've even alluded to that they have like another big project in the works like this.
Is there anywhere where this sits?
Yeah, I
Best
would.
looking?
I'm going to put this on best looking.
Yeah, I think that's the one
categories?
category it makes
It
sense.
looks incredible.
Let's see. The music's still good, but it is still just kind of.
Yeah,
the
I
music,
wouldn't-
you know,
The music is very good, but it is the music.
But I wouldn't necessarily put it above like other stuff that came out this year.
Yeah, even like moment of sequence and stuff. Like if it was the first time we'd had that moment,
sure,
yeah. But I think best looking is
but
probably
it
where
is
this
a
lives.
great looking remake of that
Yeah.
thing.
It really is. Okay, how are you guys feeling about taking a quick break
A quick break sounds good.
after getting through a good number of games?
A month and then some change.
Yeah, that's a good number of important games. Okay, we will take a quick break and come back and talk about some more. Okay, we're back to talk about more of the games that were from the year that was 2018.
Oh.
What a year.
Next up on the list, Florence.
Yes, a game I think only I have played.
Only your name is next to it on
Yes,
this list.
it's a good one though. I hope you guys play it. It's a mobile game. It's a short experience. I hope that some of you play it by the end of the
I
week.
think I heard you talking
Yeah.
about it at one point.
Yes, I'm sure I mentioned on the
Yeah.
Beastcast, maybe elsewhere as well. I think it's a really phenomenal little game. It is a story game very much about kind of the journey through one woman's relationship with someone. So it's sort of before it happens, during it, kind of each stage of it, and then the end of it, and sort of how she finds herself through it. And the game works a lot in sort of monotony and repetition, but in a way that's really very effective. So it's a lot of like different little repetitious sort of mechanics that are kind of very like mundane lifestyle stuff of like they're talking for the first time. It's sort of like this kind of fun back and forth. And then kind of as the story progresses and then they start fighting and it feels much different and it breaks the monotony in ways that I think are really effective.
So do you get choices like dialogue choices
No.
of what you want to do? So, or is it?
There's like, as far as I remember, there's no real dialogue. Like how some of the dialogue works is there like little puzzle pieces you like fit together, and like maybe in the beginning it's a little bit awkward or uncomfortable, and like when they're fighting it's like very fast, and it breaks the monotony in that way.
So they're like little puzzles you play in between.
They're not really even
Little
puzzles.
games?
Like I call them puzzles because they look like puzzle pieces, and like maybe when they're fighting, the pieces don't even fit together.
They rarely do. They don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How-
You
how,
get it.
How do we make sense of
Right.
life, Abby?
Yeah.
But it's really well done. It looks really good. It's very much a game that can only like really suits the mobile platform well. And I think it does a really effective job with the touch screens. And I played on my iPhone, which has like the Force Touch and like the haptic feedback or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And it uses that stuff really well. It feels good in my hand.
It's got a good hand
yeah,
feel.
good hand feel.
So you're not really dictating the direction of the story so much as
No,
just kind
you're
of pushing it along?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
There's no kind of branching paths or anything. It's very much a story experience, but the story's really good. It's not the most groundbreaking story. It's not doing anything crazy, but it's telling a really good grounded story.
Hey, there's beauty in the
Yes,
mundane.
and I think it's a very beautiful game. I think that's a good way of describing it. And I think that it's really smartly and effectively using those repetitious moments and those kind of everyday moments and how they kind of play into that repetition and how they later break it. So I definitely think it should be nominated for at least best debut and probably best moment or sequence, because I think there are probably a lot of good ones.
Do you think it's a best story?
Absolutely best story. And I don't know. I really like it a lot. It'll probably be on my top 10. I know it probably won't make the best game list, but I would be willing to nominate it. And potentially best style, because I think it looks really good. I think the way it implements kind of the gameplay aspects look really good and kind of work very well on the mobile platform.
Cool.
I think it's a really good game. I hope you guys check it out.
Okay.
Style, debut, moment, and story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems like it.
I couldn't type that fast.
Yeah, I think it's those 4.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right.
Would like to maybe nominate it for best game, but
You
I
do?
don't
Hey.
think it'll actually hang.
I'm gonna write it under best game.
Might as well.
Okay, we can figure that out later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, the moment we've all been waiting for.
The best game.
The latest game in the storied, groundbreaking Metal Gear series.
Oh, yeah, dude.
No,
Dan, you love Metal Gear.
it's the best story ever told, but this is not part of that story.
Metal Gear 3.
The exclamation point on the Metal Gear Saga.
No,
They took a- they
that's a
took
very
a-
important part of Metal Gear.
They
the
took a
exclamation point.
a detour into Metal Gear Solid, which I like to think of as more of a Metal Gear Gaiden.
Yeah.
And now they're back to the third Metal Gear game,
I'm so confused. What?
Metal Gear Survive.
No, it's a bad game.
third Metal
It has
Gear game.
nothing to do. No Kojima, no Metal Gear.
The latest game in the Metal Gear series.
This game is called Survive.
Metal Gear Solid is a distinctive series.
Kojima
It's
didn't
just
make
called
the
Survive.
NES version of Metal Gear, and you like that.
I don't. When have I ever said I like the NES version?
You
of
don't
Metal
like
Gear?
the NES
the
version of
MSX
Metal Gear?
version?
No.
What kind of Metal Gear fan are you?
The
I'm
hell's
a Metal
wrong
Gear
with you?
Solid fan.
Oh god.
I played through the MSX ones. It's good to get that for a history lesson.
These fair weather fans.
Fair weather.
You don't
How
even
about
know
the,
what the
I
I
real
was like
He's a
3 years old when it
casual
came out.
fan.
Yeah,
The
total
Game Boy,
cash.
the Game Boy Advance one. That was not Kojima, right?
The Game Boy Color one?
Sorry,
You
Color,
saw how much
yeah.
I enjoyed that one.
Ghost Babel.
Yes,
You liked
that's
it
the
at
one,
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool for that first episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
That game's all right.
Probably even played any of the mobile games.
So Metal Gear Survive, what the fuck?
I even though it was not Kojima, I liked the engine of Metal Gear Solid 5 enough to be like, okay, maybe they could
This
do
could
some
be
weird shit
something
here.
Very cool.
It's like the best playing Metal Gear has ever
Yeah.
been.
Easily.
Is 5.
Yeah, like it's a
far.
good action engine, and within the world of Metal Gear, there's enough wacky bullshit that happens that like maybe they could just kind of take the spirit of Kojima and let it live on. But oh no, there's really nothing good about this. Even like the stuff that was good about Metal Gear Solid 5's gameplay and the gunplay and everything.
They
It's
don't
not,
even.
here you're just poking shit through a fence with a stick or
Well,
something.
yeah, they've gone and made it. You know, it's like, hey, here's this game where the shooting actually finally is pretty decent, and then also ammo is now hard to come by, and the weapons are not great, and you know, there's all sorts of things that get in the way.
Yeah, and
Man, they took what I think is the best stealth game ever made. And took out the intelligent agents and replaced them with zombies.
yes.
Like,
And all of the good stuff that we were
Sure.
saying about Subnautica, all the things like those moments of discovery, and like, oh, I got this new thing, and you're putting this together and expanding your base and all that.
Yeah.
None of that feels good in this.
Nope. Yeah,
there was never a moment where I don't. Okay, Metal Gear
one
Survive
moment.
Defender Brad
no,
Shoemaker.
yeah,
go
but
on.
setting
Go
aside
ahead.
the disappointment of it not being like
Monster.
5, I didn't totally hate the survival part.
Well, you didn't totally hate it.
No, it found it somewhat satisfying.
I like it better than rock and stick stuff, but it's still a bad one of those.
I mean, it's literally you fucking craft sticks and poke people through fences.
Do you craft the sticks or find the
I
sticks?
kind of
don't
think
remember.
warping a
Craft the
fence in and then killing zombies
yeah,
through
like,
it is
there-
kind of
there's-
ridiculous.
There are a couple of conceptual things about Metal Gear Survive that you're like, okay, maybe, but like, yeah, it is so rotten inside and out.
And I
But
thought
not even rotten in a fun way. We're not
No,
talking about like
no.
Quiet
Yeah, like
Man
the
rotten, where
story
it's like,
is not-
haha, this is
Right,
hilarious.
no,
it's just boring and
the story
sucks.
is neither good nor bad enough to be good.
Yeah,
you start
although
playing-
I do think some of the AI voices are unintentionally hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the story is pretty terrible.
You know what? Actually, the thing I liked about it that I didn't play far enough really to say
I
if it
finished
bears
it.
out.
I finished that
So
game.
you would know.
Beat that?
I reviewed that.
Oh man.
I thought in concept the dust, like the idea of navigating this really harsh environment where you can only kind of like navigate by seeing lights off in the distance and stuff was like a neat idea.
I love the dust.
I thought
heard
was
that.
I thought there was potential there.
Yes, that's kind of the weird thing about Metal Gear Survive is there is potential around it, and you know there's certainly I think that you could have plenty of people make a pretty good Metal Gear game. I'm not precious about it, but the people responsible for Metal Gear Survive failed to find a good game anywhere in that thing.
And the connection to Metal Gear is so tenuous where it's
Yeah.
like, what is it? Just the mother base during the destruction
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
it's
XOF.
just
They
like,
all
oh, you
just
get
they fell into a
warped
wormhole
Yeah, and then they explain that over the course of it, and the explanation is ridiculous and also bad.
Does it tie it all into the greater Metal Gear?
No, not really.
No? Great.
Yeah, again, it is not trying to evoke the spirit of Kojima so much as it seems like they are trying to exorcise it, and that exorcism has gone horribly wrong.
I like the little hidden message they did on the thing at the beginning where it's just like, fuck you, Konami. We love Kojima.
Yeah.
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 I missed that one.
Oh, it was great. The
Interesting.
coded message, it was like the first letters of everyone's names. It was good.
It just says like Koji Pro, doesn't it? Koji Pro
Yeah,
Forever.
Koji Pro Forever is
Yeah.
KJF,
Yeah.
and then I forgot what the other thing was.
Yeah. They've got a multiplayer kind of co-op thing where you can kind of get in and like do base defense for a few rounds.
That was no
And-
good. The waves.
Yeah, but you know, but like that was the loop, right? You were supposed to go in there, do that stuff to unlock more blueprints to craft the higher end items. And the crafting was just a pain in the ass. The base building was a pain in the ass. Like there were things about it. You're like, man, if they ironed out this, and this, you could maybe have an okay game.
So I think I
But-
got exactly up to the point where I said that,
yeah,
and then did not get past it to see that they didn't do any of that.
Oh yeah. No, that's a great place to bail out.
Yeah, so I felt pretty good about the like 3 to 4 hours I spent with it.
Here's the question: did you guys have high hopes for this
No.
game?
So that's what I was just thinking. I don't even think this is the most disappointing because from the moment I heard this existed, I was like, what? No.
I mean,
Who wants this?
healthy skepticism was the best reaction you could hope for
Yeah,
from
it would
that
have been
thing.
nice for it to be some cool thing, but like at no point did I expect it to be anything.
I hate to break this to you, but I have just written it under most disappointing.
Okay.
Because I played it at a preview event like 3 weeks before it came out, and again, played just enough of the beginning of the game to think like there might be something here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We saw glimmering, moments of hope
it
in
was
there
possible.
somewhere,
Yeah.
but even that was subverted by it.
Yeah.
It was possible insofar as any game might be the best game ever made.
Right.
That's
You
true.
might wander into that timeline where that is the best game ever made.
It's certainly
true.
possible.
Yep, you could fall through a wormhole and
yes.
suddenly Metal Gear Survive is the best game.
Well,
Could you imagine if that game was good and then everyone realized it was Kojima actually holding Metal Gear back?
But that didn't happen.
Like,
so,
that might not be too far off, but that doesn't mean Metal Gear Survive has to be good.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So,
Can't wait for Death Stranding.
boy, oh boy.
At least for me, this was also the year to my own horror that I realized I kind of might like survival mechanics in the right game.
In the right game.
That can be awesome.
So just to support it being disappointing. Like
Fair enough.
I think I kind of am into that stuff if the game is good. I mean, this didn't turn out that way.
yeah,
but
as much
but
as you liked Metal Gear 5, I can see why you could maybe
like I was
hope.
like, all right, this
Yeah.
is a weird angle to take on this, but if they nail it, then sure, I'll give it a shot.
And there were some ridiculous things around the edges of that where you're like, oh, you're drinking this contaminated water
Yeah.
and then throwing
Yes.
up at random for an hour, you know, whatever it was. And just like there was some silly things around the edges of it that you were like, okay, Metal Gear.
It seemed like it might
But-
be the right kind of Metal Gear stupid.
But yeah, no, it's the distribution of weapons or the way you fought the zombies in the dust just ended up and through those co-op missions and all that other stuff.
What were they called? They didn't call them
completely
zombies. They called them. Was it
Dust
the weird like
boys.
dust soldiers from
yeah,
5?
Yeah, they have like crystals for heads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've purged that
Yeah.
information from my memory.
That's fair.
It's
Call.
just not there.
Thank you.
There's more important things.
And yeah, it's a notable game for sure, which is why we're talking about it here. But it is pretty bad.
All
It is
right.
pretty terrible in a lot of ways.
I'll think we
Cool.
will ever see another game with Metal Gear name on it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Is it a hot mess?
No,
It's a
Okay.
lukewarm
It's just a bad
mess.
game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Curious.
think I would put it in any one of these categories personally.
Okay.
I
we
think
can
the-
have the most disappointing conversation later,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I don't think it really
I think disappointing is the only place it belongs.
fits
Okay.
there. But I, yes, when someone comes along and buys the Metal Gear IP from Konami and then marches
Oh,
Kojima out
just-
onto a stage.
You're just saying someone will make another.
Oh
Metal
yeah,
Gear
there
game.
will
Not
be another.
Konami
There will
necessarily.
be another Metal Gear game someday. Even if
I
Konami
agree.
makes it, there will be another Metal Gear game.
Wait, are you
someday.
saying that there's a possibility that somebody could buy the Metal Gear IP and then make another one with Kojima?
Yes.
I mean,
I never even considered that.
Of course, that could happen.
someone
I
with
don't know how
enough,
business works.
someone with enough throwing around money could totally make something like that.
Think Kojima could make another Metal Gear?
Weirder things have happened.
How
Yeah.
much do I need to save?
A lot.
How much does Metal Gear cost?
It depends how Death Stranding does. I
Oh,
think.
yeah. How his stock goes?
Yeah.
Check back in
exactly.
2021.
Okay.
It's that's there's
All
not
right.
there's not
really,
much more to
I'm
say.
really curious what kind of valuation there is on the Metal Gear IP now.
Yeah.
I bet it's pretty high.
You think so?
I bet Konami
Compared to a
thinks
lot
it's
of
pretty
other
high.
IPs, yeah. What,
If you
what
put
Konami
out-
would want to let go of it would be.
I'm gonna say
If you sell the collection, a Metal Gear
Exactly,
collection,
yeah.
it would
Yeah.
do well.
you're
And,
right. Well, they've
Snakes
done
and
that.
Smash.
They've done
right?
that.
Yeah.
The HD collection has been out on everything at this point.
Oh,
It's
has
all-
it?
It's all over the place.
It's on current consoles.
No.
It's
No.
backwards compatible now.
Yeah.
HD collection's
Yeah.
backwards compatible on Xbox.
Yeah,
But
so
it
I
doesn't
bought
have
it.
one.
The
No, it's
PlayStation
2 and 3.
The PS3 version does.
No, it was a weird thing if you bought the
Or
Legacy
you get it
collection. Yeah, it was a
separately.
code,
Yeah,
but it
you-
was like even that was weird because
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, it was a whole weird thing with the first one.
Well, now you can just buy the PlayStation Classic.
I did, and I'm gonna play through Metal Gear
Play
Solid.
Metal Gear Solid on that.
It's a good game.
Yes, it's a great game.
Is it the NTSC version at least, or is it PAL?
I'm pretty
don't
sure
know.
that one is
Okay.
is NTSC.
All right.
Cancel your pre-order for that thing.
No Rumble. Really? It's not great. Yeah, I want to buy all the tiny.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, yeah,
Later.
but don't plug it in.
No, play it. Cool borders.
Ooh. Wow.
What?
That's
have
what
to
you
move
bought that
on.
thing for?
Hey, Cool Borders is an alright game. I mean, there's other good games.
That's I'm pretty sure is a PAL version. So if you like a slower, it runs slower
oh,
than
really?
the
Why
real.
would they put that on there?
That's a great question, Dan. I'm glad you asked. Let's spend the next hour going over why you should cancel your
I actually
pre-order
bought
for the
2 of them.
PlayStation Classic.
Wow.
Get rid of that thing. Unload it
I
on
like
some
my little
sucker.
Nintendos.
Let's table this for now.
Yeah.
Where do you put them?
I know on my shelf.
Are they not dirty?
No,
Anywhere
stop
you
this.
want, baby.
I got a lot
Anywhere
of-
you
He will
want.
never stop
I have
if
a
you
lot
don't
of
stop.
HDMI inputs. You got to fill them.
So what you're saying is PlayStation Classic hottest mess.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Actually, why don't you write it down? Yes, write it down.
Put it on the
write
list.
it down. Write it down.
Put it on the list.
And then we're back on track, and then we
All
can
right.
move on to the next.
If you have one here, I should play
The
it. and
next
maybe
good
cancel.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hang on, I have to find the
hell of a
category.
game.
People want to know what the good game is that I just referenced.
Ooh, it's
I
so
wanna
good.
know.
Ooh, it's so good.
I want to know.
All right.
What is it? Brad?
You guys like FTL?
No,
Yes,
No.
I do actually. I love FTL.
FTL is amazing until you get to the last boss. But,
Well, yeah, it's a nightmare.
it's okay.
But the makers of FTL made a new game this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Into the Breach.
Oh, that game's good.
Yeah.
It's fucking incredible.
It's really good.
I'd like to say
Really good.
I played a lot of Into the Breach when it first came out. I unlocked all the squads except the last hidden one that you need all the achievements for. 3 days ago, I realized there was a Mac version, and I didn't have access to my PC, so I just started it up again. Started playing from the very beginning, and it was like putting on an old glove. Is that the expression?
Yeah,
But
right.
not
Right.
an old glove.
A nice old mildewy glove. No,
Yeah.
it was great. I locked in, and I was back exactly where I was when I put it down.
Did
I
you
was.
do the Switch one too?
I haven't played the Switch port yet.
That's what I'm feeling with that now. Is I
good.
got the Switch one, and
Is it
yeah,
good?
right from the first one, it's like, oh right, this game's fucking awesome.
I just started thinking out these complex moves and stuff, and just looking at my objectives. Oh god,
So
it's
this is a turn-based tactics game involving mechs, trios of mechs that all have different abilities, and once you eventually unlock later on, you can mix and match them however you like. It's kind of modular that way. You are fighting giant bugs, and again, it is all turn-based. So in a way, it's kind of almost more like a puzzle game than it is.
yes.
Yeah,
and more importantly, it's not necessarily about killing the enemies. It's about saving buildings.
saving the people and
Which kind of forces you to think about it a little differently. You know, when I first started out, I was just like, okay, this is a game where I got to smush these bugs
Right.
with my robots. But then I started thinking no, okay, I'm going to have my guy take a bullet.
Yes.
There's these feelings. The game sets up these moments where it's like, oh, I have to sacrifice this pilot. And you just have to think about, you just spend 20 minutes thinking about one turn.
Well, that's,
while
perma-
trying
that's
to-
permadeath.
Yeah.
the pilot
Yeah.
is gone.
But you can recover from like a hit or two to your mech typically, but like if they are going after a building, I will always throw my guy in front of it if it means like, because what was you get hit, if one building gets hit, doesn't that just totally fuck your chances of getting like the best possible like population thing? Because that goes into the meta game, right?
yeah, but it
Yeah.
takes down your score on that individual level.
Right. But that's the thing you can't recover from as far as a meta score thing.
there are
Whereas like
ways
you can
to-
recover your health.
There are
if
ways to
yeah.
heal buildings at the end of an island. Like some of the perks
You get your
can
hit
take.
points
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But
some of the power level thing.
yeah.
or-
Yeah, when
yeah,
you can cash things in at the end of an entire island to get some health.
Right,
back like
yeah.
that.
My favorite thing about this game is it is I like Advance Wars. I like a lot of those kind of turn-based games, but my favorite thing about this game is it gives you 100% of the information. It gives you exactly what the enemies are going to do, in what order,
Yeah, that's
what
the key.
order the environment is going to interact with you. There are no surprises.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happens in terms of surprises is like a bad spawn or something, and it's just like, oh well, that's a bummer, But
It almost feels to me like when you play up a cross puzzle, it's like, okay, all the logic is there. It's on me to fuck up, basically, because the game's not going to fuck you over because, like you said, it gives you all the information. You know that flying thing is going to go first, and then that thing is,
Right.
and that's going to block that thing from coming up. So realistically, at the beginning of every level, you should be able to just logic it out, which
Yes.
is what's so fascinating. Is just staring at these things before
Like if they
every
could
turn.
print a board in the newspaper, like they did with chess.
Yeah.
Sit there and write it all
Yeah.
out.
I was
Yeah.
really
It
hoping
felt
they would
like
add like a
chess.
daily
Yeah. It
puzzle
totally
thing.
does.
Especially because it feels like you're strategizing, and like you said, like you are making intentional sacrifices for like the greater good of like this map and everything, which I really enjoyed. Part of me would have loved like a Celeste type of like accessibility option of like,
Sure.
you want to fucking safe scum your way through this? Here you go. Just like I think for me, like that would probably be very satisfying. But I appreciate that it's a game that forces you to challenge yourself and make sacrifices.
They
and
do it
kind of
a
harder decisions.
tiny bit with the like reset. You can once per
Right.
map.
Yeah,
you can reset a turn, but yeah. I agree.
And then
Also,
there's pilots with their different abilities. Like there's one that lets you get 2 resets and things like
Right.
that.
yeah,
Well,
the
it's
different
very-
pilots. That's really cool.
It's very forgiving with the unlocks because you can unlock everything on easy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you
'Cause
can.
unlock all these extra squads and tons of stuff for later playthroughs, and you can get all of that on easy, which is fairly easy.
So I do think that's the permutation, right? So you do get all the pieces, you get all the moves in advance, but you can have any selection of abilities on your squad that you have brought in. Also, different squads per map. It is a run-based game where you are trying to make it as far as you can in a what's this called, a single sitting or playthrough, and you will do that same selection of islands the next time through. You're not doing a campaign, but you can bring in the variables, which are the squads and the stuff you have upgraded to make the game different, so
Yes.
that you could then screw yourself on that side, right? Like
If you don't prepare.
you can come in with no weapon. Like
Right,
you
right.
can you can you can accidentally bring yourself in and not have, you are distributing points and stuff like that. And I think that's really interesting as well. It's like you have agency over your loadout, how you best think you will conquer this island. The islands have different pros and cons, different weaknesses and strengths. One's like ice, one's these bugs explode, these the sand
frozen.
goes, but they're interesting, and I feel like every time I unlocked a new squad, I hated it, and then I was like, this is the best one.
Yeah, totally.
This is the one everybody wins with.
the
Jumping
thing.
over people and pooping smoke on them, like
So something to this.
who would use this? This is stupid.
feel like-
And then be like, this is how you win the game.
Everyone I've talked to has had different favorite pilots, different favorite squads. Just like it really speaks to letting you play how you want to play. You can have a really defensive team that just uses like the smoke and the movement options and stuff, or you can have a really offensive team. Like I really liked the electric one that had the whip that travels through enemies, and it's all about just kind of setting up one big turn where you wipe like 6 bugs. It's just so rewarding.
I totally agree that it is more puzzle game than tactics game because everything obeys its own. It's totally internally consistent.
Right.
Like everything acts like it's supposed to, and it shows you what everything's going to do. But there is just enough randomness in there.
Yeah.
To create some real highs and lows.
Oh, yeah.
like when you get that power, the like buildings have a chance to resist damage.
Yes.
So it's like one more building hit and you're fucked, and then that procs and you make it through by the skin of your teeth.
But I like how it's not like an XCOM thing where it's a dice roll, where it's like, I hope this thing happens or doesn't happen. It's like, no, that red arrow is going there. If you don't do something about this, that shit is going to happen.
Well, so, like Brett said, somase there is that dice roll of like 50% chance.
But the dice roll is more in your favor.
Yeah,
potentially.
you never get
Those are-
screwed by a dice roll.
Yeah.
Those are very edge casey.
Yeah, but those do make it very
specific.
exciting because then you have to make that tactical choice of
Yes.
like, well, I'm going to lose this. I could see 5 turns ahead I'm going to lose this.
Yeah.
I got to roll the dice
Yep.
here.
And sometimes it works out in your favor, and you feel like you've just like flown through an explosion and come out the other side.
There's also a lot of very fun stuff of pushing enemies off a map, or and those are very satisfying. But I think that I didn't play through a ton of it. I played a lot of it. At some point, I kind of fell off of it. Other stuff came out. But one of my favorite parts is the actual backdrop in which you're playing this, which is the aliens have come. They have destroyed the world. And you are just constantly sending people back in time to try and stop this from happening. So at some point during the game, if you have lost, you can send your best pilot back in time to lead a whole new squadron against the bugs. And that's just a fun, I think, novel way
And sometimes
to
you
make
get
a
the like
run-based
rogue
game.
time pods that fall down, and if you go collect it, it's just like a pilot's like, yeah, they fucked up and I'm here, but thanks for saving me.
Yeah.
It's like a clever hook to put into a run-based game that's just like, okay, here's a reason why you can take your good pilot back because you're shooting them back in time to lead the resistance, John Connor style, against these giant bugs.
I realize it may be early to be saying things like this, but it is the game I have probably spent the most amount of time playing this year, like consistently across the entire year. There are a few games that are still kind of like hovering around the top 3 for me, but I think this might be my game of the year.
Whoa.
I might be there with you. That's big.
I wrote it under best game before we even started talking.
Yeah. I think it also best debut is a category that game totally belongs in.
Yeah.
I would posit there's a lot of moments in sequence that I really loved from that game, but I just remember the first time on the last island when you clear it and then you drop down to that kind of like hell world and there's just
The rocks
ball
coming down
and
and all
the
that.
rocks coming down.
I mean, look,
Lock
it's
that
a
place.
nightmare, but it's a really cool bit.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
also those big aha moments when you finally, figure something out. You think that you're screwed, and then it's like, oh yeah, I can actually do this.
I can
and save
launch my
everybody.
own mech in front of this to take the fatal shot and just.
No game this year has made me feel both incredibly smart and just like the dumbest motherfucker alive than that one.
Yeah, man. When you make a mistake, when you make a boneheaded
You just waste a
oversight,
turn completely.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I forgot to launch the fucking artillery. God damn it!
or when you just don't account for like, oh, of course I was going to hit my own unit by doing that. Like,
totally.
what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
It does the thing that I wish more games did, where enemies are subject to their own attacks, and so are you. Like everybody is subject to everything. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Like airstrikes.
Enemies, like friendly fire is active on them.
Yeah.
That's why it's great to see where their things coming.
immunity
You
is
shove their friend in the way.
forcing them to kill each other.
Yeah.
And things like that. Like that kind of flexibility is
Immunity is a thing that you have to spec for if you want it. Like that's something you have to build around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love games with like a general rule set that everything on the board is equally affected by.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's a fantastic piece of work.
It's a hell of a game. It's really something.
So it's at least the best game and best debut.
Yeah, I put it down on those.
All right.
I'm gonna put it under best music.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It's not a huge amount of music, but it is good. What's there is very good.
I mean, I got the soundtrack on Steam. It's a good 30 tracks or something. Like there's more than you think.
It's just a lot of it's very ambient, so it doesn't necessarily come across as.
It's very FTL-esque. It's the
Yeah.
same composer. Yes, it is sort of backgroundy,
but I do like it.
You might think there's not as much because every island has its own pretty obvious motif, where all the songs from that island sound pretty similar. So some of it may have run together for you, but I've listened to that soundtrack a good bit this year.
And Jan backed you up on the best soundtrack bets. So
Cool.
All right.
There we go.
There we go.
It's very good.
I'm into it.
Do it.
It's a heck of a game.
Quite good. Okay.
What's next?
Next is Moss, which I haven't played yet, but would really like to.
Yes, I think it's great. It's probably still one of my favorite VR experiences I've had. I think it is very much a game that you can only play in VR for it to have the same effect. And I think it's very smartly done. It came out for the PSVR originally. I think it's on other stuff available now. But it really uses sort of the kind of more simplistic sit-down VR mechanics really well. With like some things I'll like actually physically grab with like a move controller, like my controller in my hand that works as a move controller, and other things I'm just moving around like a normal game would. But as far as like it sort of sets up these, you're playing as like a watcher of a mouse, but you're like guiding the mouse through an area, and then she like solves these little puzzles, and there's some sort of light platforming. But it does such a good job with kind of depth and with scale. Like the mouse has real weight. She feels like the size of a mouse. The world feels like it's made in miniatures, and you are your normal size. Like you don't have that weird like I feel like a giant or I feel very small. Like I felt like me looking into this sort of small world, which I really appreciated.
Diorama kind of thing.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
exactly.
Oh, that
yes,
sounds cool.
And it's very smartly done in the sense like an issue I kind of had with Astrobot was like I will sit there and like the whole thing will move me forward in a way I find jarring and kind of nauseating. And this very much had every little diorama you sit in, you are in one very specific spot. It feels very catered to how you're going to look at it in VR. And there were like some really truly beautiful moments of like, oh, I'm in this giant cathedral, and you have all these like small kind of statues of mice who are clearly important in like this game's kind of culture and lore, which I really appreciated. And the combat was pretty simplistic, but it was still pretty challenging. And it was one of those things where when you watch it kind of as someone watching a screen of somebody else doing VR, it kind of looks like this combat seems easy or like not very good. Then when you do it yourself, it's actually pretty overwhelming.
It can be
and,
tricky.
Like, it's tricky.
Yeah.
So you do take control of the mouse directly
Yes.
at
Yes.
time, but not all the time.
No, for the-
sometimes you're.
No, for
No,
the
you
most part,
always
you are,
control
yeah.
the mouse. Yeah, you always control the
Oh,
mouse.
okay. I thought it was more of a Rube Goldberg like move things around
No,
to
no,
clear,
no.
clear a path
So
for
you
the mouse.
always control the mouse, and then you
Okay.
can also use your move controller to, let's say, gonna move up a pillar or move down a pillar, or
So, yeah,
grab
okay.
an enemy and like freeze it while I'm making the mouse go and run and shoot it.
Right.
Or pet the
whatever it
mouse.
is.
Let's say.
Yes, a lot of mouse petting. Very nice.
you-
That's why I haven't made it off like the second screen. We got
it's
this
high
script, like-
fiving.
But yeah, my son actually puts on the VR helmet and he'll like get down, he'll crawl down on his hands
Oh.
and knees and get face to face with the mouse.
It is definitely one of the best uses of like a solid, competent use of VR game. Not
like a game you actually want to play.
Yeah, not just
Totally.
like an experience and
Yeah.
not just like a hey, put this on. It is like you can play this. This feels like a full game, and it really feels like it has been designed and made use of the VR space
And
in an adorable and
Yes.
satisfying way.
I'm glad it did that because I think there was some worry early on when we were seeing VR stuff that like all that tech demo stuff was all first person stuff. You know, that makes sense that that'd be the first thing you jump to. And then like Lucky's Tale came out, and I was like, okay, I guess it's kind of novel that you can turn your head around and see stuff.
But also it sucks.
Right. Yeah. The thing is like stuff like Moss and we'll get to Astrobot later, like show that, you know, these games that you could play a lot of these things, a lot of the elements of these games without VR. It really does help a lot. And like you said, the diorama stuff and everything, I haven't played, you know, you played a lot more than I did, but it really did seem impressive, and I'm glad that games like this can be awesome in VR.
The thing it really reminded me of was Zack and Wiki for the for the Wii. Like it's that style of sort of like, it's kind of this weird like unexpected use of the technology that actually is really charming and really like just well designed, you know?
Yeah. And I also think the story in it is good. It's not like the most groundbreaking story, but it's well done, and it sort of has this sort of kind of storytelling aspect to it, where you start in this library, like a normal-sized human library, and you're reading this book, and there's like, I think you're the narrator or somebody. I don't know who the narrator is. They keep referring to the narrator. I think it might be you. But anyway, there's a woman narrating the whole thing, and this woman is clearly doing all the voices for like the characters within the game as well, which is kind of neat.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
But it's just like, it's a well done, the presentation is all very good, and I think a lot of the gameplay and kind of the VR aspects of it and everything else are also well done. There, by the end, some of the platforming was a little too imprecise for like some of the chasing missions. But overall, I didn't have a huge issue with it, especially considering it's a lot of like puzzle platforming versus like got to be fast,
like
kind
precision.
of. Yes,
Right.
But towards the end, it asked for a little more precision than I think it should have, which is a bit frustrating. But all in all, I really love this game a lot, and I'm really glad I played it.
Do you think it fits in specific categories here?
I think best debut for sure.
Yeah.
I think best game. I'm trying to think of specific moments or sequences, and I don't really necessarily have any. I do. Well, okay. Yes, I do. I think petting the mouse and high-fiving the mouse are pretty great.
Sounds fun.
Yes.
I would put it in best style because I really do think it takes full advantage of a diorama style, the way they construct the scenarios, like where you can look around and kind of poke your head around, the sense of scale where you're kind of dipping your head into it. I think it all works together to make you feel like this is a tiny little mouse, the little style. Like this is a small thing that is running around here in a bigger world.
Yeah, I feel like, there was stuff that, even when the Oculus Rift launched, that was doing that kind of diorama, or like you're watching a thing, not necessarily a first person game.
Right.
But it's something that
it was always like action figure-y, or it just didn't, the look wasn't cohesive enough. So like Moss seems like it really pulls it together.
It's something that I think VR does very well. VR does scale well, right? Like where something can seem huge in VR or tiny.
VR can do
can
scale
do
really well.
Yes.
A lot of people, I feel like a lot of games really blow it.
Yeah, I feel like I either feel like I'm 4 feet tall or 7 feet tall.
But yes, I think it's something that Moss does very well and executes on really well. And once you put the VR on, have a different sense of what that game is than just watching it on a 2D screen.
Watching it on just like a static screen doesn't necessarily give you that effect. Like I was very skeptical of it until I put the helmet on, and then I was charmed pretty much immediately.
They were trying to get everybody to wear the helmet and put it on.
I think we did the quick look like twice because the first time
it just wasn't coming
like,
across.
Yeah.
There is no non-VR version of this. Right?
No.
I know, it would do a real disservice to that game if there ever
It's like you kind of could do it, but it wouldn't.
Why would
it wouldn't
you
be that? And that's, I don't know if that's almost like a knock against it in a way of just like
I
the
feel like
game
that's a knock.
itself is not great, but in VR, like the ability to kind of like look around and do it, like it gives it a depth and a reality that I think like helps sell the rest of the stuff.
I still like the game. I don't think the gameplay is bad at all.
I guess I don't mean it's bad. It's just like it's plain. It's like, okay, I'm going to manipulate this platform, do this. Like it's not.
But I think you can make a plain thing like that when you use the technology well and in tandem with that.
Totally.
I think you can totally create something there.
We'll probably say a lot of the same stuff about Astrobot for a lot of the same reasons. But it's like when VR is used well, it can take those kind of mechanics and really make them sing. And
Okay.
I'll have to play that soon.
It's cool.
It's good. I
one
like
of
it a lot.
one of the two reasons I bought a PlayStation VR.
Yeah, same.
Is that one of the two games that came with your
Yes,
PlayStation?
it was. As a matter of fact.
Might have been.
Did anybody not buy that bundle?
I didn't.
I almost
already have
bought the other one with the Move controllers, but I was like, you know what? Nah.
These are the two games I want.
A lot of good controller games.
What if you want to play Johann Sebastian Joust, though?
I'll find some. It'll be fine.
Okay. Next game, Vinny.
Yeah.
Just say it. Wait, is that really?
Chuchel.
Chuchel. Okay, that's what I would have said. I was just like, man, I guarantee that thing is not pronounced how it looks, but apparently
It's cute. It's Animina. Is that the
phenomena. Right?
phenomenon?
Phenomena.
What?
Yeah.
Maybe I had that wrong.
It's they've done these games before. They are adventure games. They are getting as they move forward in this kind of point and click adventure game. They are becoming more storybook. Amanita.
Yes.
Okay.
Storybook of, hey, solve this little vignette, this little puzzle thing. You're not going to have an inventory. You're not going to really do traditional point and click adventure games.
Mm-hmm. It's
But-
like well suited for mobile, I think, in that sense too.
Yeah, and also just kind of they're so out there in their designs and their kind of like mushroom trip sense of aesthetic. The whole thing is so imaginative.
It's like kid-friendly psychedelia, like
Yeah.
it's that kind
Yo
of like,
Gabba Gabba.
yeah, a little bit. Like it's definitely got like a very cutesy sort of like kid-friendly character design, but it's also just a little bit off and weird
Yeah,
in a
it's
way
like
that
cutesy in a way that's also kind of like dirty.
acid
Yeah.
trippy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, kind
but
of.
not as like
quite
gross.
not as
that dirty.
aggressively unnerving. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just charming. It's fun. It's breezy. It's not going to tax you too much.
It made me smile, like it's not.
jeez.
I think it's just very funny in its own way.
And the music is good. The style is good. I don't have too many categories in which I would slot this into in terms of it being a blockbuster for the year, but I do think it deserves credit for coming out and in a market that doesn't necessarily support a lot of point and click adventure stuff.
Yeah.
They continue to make games, and I want them to continue to make games.
I would
this is
totally
Yeah.
back it for style.
Yeah, I see it in style.
Okay.
And I feel
How's
like I
the
remember the
music in it,
music
though?
being good.
The music is
I
good.
think this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to be like, I think the music's good, and then I'll have to review all
yeah.
of it beforehand. But I feel like I remember the music really influencing the gameplay
Yes.
and vice versa.
It's
really
very
well.
contextual, though,
Yes.
so I think it
Right.
works better in style maybe than best music, because if
Sure.
you're just listening to it, it's going to be like, what is going on? Well, you have to imagine this like elephant with a nose that is blowing its own.
I'm
feet.
doing that most of the time. So don't worry about me.
So I think best style is probably where
Yeah,
it fits
absolutely.
the best, but I like it. These are the people that made Machinarium.
Yeah, I was just about to
and,
say Machinarium and Botanicula.
yeah, and
some of those Samarost.
Yeah.
And I think this is a little less like densely artistic than like something like Machinarium was, but it's got a cool look
Is
to
it the same style? Is this pretty much the type of game they have
It's
made?
hand drawn and
Well, no, I mean gameplay wise.
So it is lighter. It is very much you will solve a screen and then you will move on to another screen without reference basically to the
That
previous.
sounds
Right.
like more interesting to me than like Machinarium. and some of that
So
other stuff
they've
too.
moved away
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
that traditional. You
that
have no
sounds cool.
inventory.
Yeah.
You're just
Okay.
solving the
Okay.
screen.
I liked how
sounds okay.
simplistic it was to the point where I wish I played it on mobile. I
Do
think
they
it's
make it
probably
on
best-
mobile?
Yes,
There actually
I believe
is a
so, yeah.
version?
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think it's
that's
probably
cool.
best suited for mobile.
My kids love it.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
The character's just like this grumpy, angry little like fuzzball that is constantly getting wily coyoted by all these things. And they have a lot of fun seeing him get squished and tossed around. And there's a cute little mouse that he's trying to fight with over this cherry, and silly and fun.
Your description of it reminds me of Gnog. Gnog.
Yeah.
Where it's like kind of like
yeah.
it's almost like it's like a point and click adventure game, but also it's really just kind of like here's a interaction. Like there's a set of interactions here, and just poke at it and watch them and go like,
It's like
yay.
Panic for Sega CD.
Yeah, and like there's a way to solve it and move on, but
Yes.
really it's just like, hey, you're just here to see all the stuff.
Yeah, and you do have to solve it to move
Yeah.
on. There are a couple of dexterity puzzles, but that's probably their weakest point. in
Okay,
it. But for the most part, it is how many things did you click on to get past this part?
Yeah.
It's good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good. I really liked it a lot. I thought it did some cool stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
I like cool stuff.
Do you like orcs?
I do.
No.
I do.
Some
There's
context.
no orcs in this game.
There's a Warhammer game
I
on this
like
list.
killing.
There's no orcs.
There are no orcs.
in
There
this
is a
game.
Warhammer. Really?
Yes.
None?
It's the rats, man. It's
and
the
undead.
Vermintide.
And the undead.
Yeah, that's true.
Warhammer Vermintide 2 is on this list. We
Yeah.
put a Warhammer game on our.
Well, I mean,
This ain't a Warhammer game, man.
there've been 3 Warhammer games released every month this year, so just by sheer odds, one would have to make it
Yeah,
on here,
seriously.
right?
Probably true.
Yeah.
I played a ton of this game when it first came out, and I had a great time with it. It's a pretty good follow-up to the first. They expanded on it in a lot of cool ways. So basically, it's these levels, kind of Left 4 Dead style, where you're working your way through Kind of little like
Four-player
objectives.
cooperative.
Yeah, 4-player co-op, or you and some bots. Each character is kind of their own class. There's like the dwarf who's kind of a tank. There's a wizard, sword guy, etc.
I mean, it's a loot-based Left 4 Dead, right?
Yeah, in the
It takes elements from
That's
Left
the
4 Dead for
shorthand.
sure. Yeah.
There's, like, way more objectives too.
Yes, it is more like the
Well, it's been a long time since Left 4 Dead.
yes. So it's Left 4 Dead, but with more like stopgaps of okay, like you need to pull this crank to open this gate while defending from. I mean, it's all the objectives revolve around do a thing while a bunch of enemies flood in.
Right, of course.
But it at least has more variation than Left 4 Dead.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, like if Left 4 Dead had continued going, it would probably
Yeah.
get to this point where you're more class-based and more diverse objectives. But, it's also set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, which is, by their own admission, the grim dark universe.
They yell about
Gnarly.
Sigmar a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood, a lot of cultists, a lot of exploding rats and stuff like that.
My kind of people.
Which makes some of that stuff, for better or worse, I find it entertaining to be swinging a giant hammer around, smashing rat
It's
heads.
really satisfying. When you just hit like 6 rats with one swing,
Yeah.
just
Or
there's
casting
It's
fireballs
a
and
good, for
some
horde
mobs.
modes,
crunch.
it's a good horde.
Have
mode.
you tried Vermintide 2 on consoles at all? Or
No.
'cause I know it's
I
there.
was
too.
playing
Yeah,
PC.
so it's coming out on PS4, I
like
think.
soonish, right?
Oh,
This
okay.
month, out on
I
Xbox
feel like I had
One.
so much fun with it, but I don't play on the computer enough to continue to keep up with it. But I feel like I might play more on the
If it were
PlayStation.
on a
They've been
Yes, 'cause
supporting it really well.
Yeah, I
too.
really enjoyed that game a lot.
I had the opposite problem of I didn't get to it for the first couple weeks, and by the time I thought about picking it up, like everybody I knew had leveled so far past me that I felt like I
Yeah.
shouldn't bother. So I'm hoping, maybe
Well,
that PS4
let's jump
version
in
will
on
be like
PS4.
a
We'll be a
fresh
couple of
start.
noobs.
I'd play, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is in Vermintide 2 some of the stuff, and I might be mixing up Vermintide and Vermintide 2 on some of these, but forgive me if I am. But the class-based stuff where you level up and actually unlock different specializations for your class is really interesting.
Yeah.
You unlock; they have different weapon sets, which make the classes play differently.
There's like 3 subclasses for each class.
Yeah, and that's actually very interesting. They're not breaking new ground with this stuff, but it makes the game jumping into what at launch was like 5 levels. I can't remember how many levels. They're pretty big levels.
Yeah.
But not a ton. But you're making the playthrough different each time by making progress, getting new weapons, getting your loot. There's a button to just look at your loot because it is a loot game.
And then deciding if you want to pick up those books or whatever, right?
Right, to
Yeah,
modify their
that-
skulls.
That
That's
adds the grimoires. So there's like tomes and grimoires, which add a kind of, you get more loot, more better loot when you do that stuff.
I love more better loot.
Which is nice for when you want to, like, okay, I kind of know this level now. I can confidently beat it. Now I can add another level where it's like, and picking up the grip, like, it's a puzzle to even get the items, but then once
Yeah.
you pick them up, they will lower your max health and stuff like that.
and take up an inventory slot.
Yeah.
Right. I like that they're hidden and not just like a Halo skull that you flip on before you load the level.
Yeah.
Like it makes it feel like a little.
The Halo skulls were hidden originally too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you find these every time. Like you have
Yeah.
to do a little jumping puzzle just to get it. And
Yeah,
that
and
makes
take-
it feel like some forbidden knowledge that you have to.
Totally. It's like an old video game
Right.
thing.
Yes.
that-
Yes. Exactly.
So you watch a YouTube video.
yes.
Got it.
Actually, honestly, yes. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a bummer because
but I mean,
they're
it's the
really
kinda-
hard to find
It's
organically.
the kind of thing where if you're a new player and you see some dude
Yes.
like jumping across rooftops, you're like, "What the fuck is that guy doing?"
That's more of how I found them all. Of like you're playing in a
watching
group,
someone do it, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
because you have to take up one of your 2, and I think it's 2 inventory slots with one of these.
Yeah.
So the other players will direct you to get it because they don't want to carry another
Yeah.
one. So if you're playing with somebody who knows where they all are, they'll be like, "Yo, you gotta pick this up. It's in the stream.
Yeah.
It's behind the tree. Just pick it up."
I need to hold on to this health potion.
Yeah,
Like, trust me. You
right.
go get it.
Which makes it interesting. And for a not being able to swing a stick without hitting a Warhammer game, like this one succeeds.
Yeah.
There have been I have played a lot of Warhammer games this year, and they have not all been very good. The majority of them have been. They just seem like they came out of a mill somewhere, and I'm glad. I'm glad this one does well. It's one of those sleeper ones that just seems to pop up every now and then and be like, Vermintide's doing all right. I think it's hard to tell.
Yeah, they have a lot of big updates. They just had one like 6 weeks ago or something that added a hefty amount of content for free.
New maps. Sounds like maps are the one thing you would really want more of.
I didn't check it out.
Yeah, I haven't
unfortunately, I didn't
jumped
have
back
time, but
Yeah,
I know they've been updating.
I don't love it, but I think it's a solid game.
Okay.
I personally don't have a category for it, but I would acknowledge that it is a great game.
You've said your piece about it.
Yeah, it might graze my top 10, but
Okay.
I don't believe it belongs in really in any of these categories.
Okay. All right. I would like to play that.
Let's get on PS4, Brad. Let's
Okay.
clean up.
I'm in.
It's so good to smash those rats.
What's a Warhammer-esque thing to say to that?
For Sigma!
Blood
Just some
for the
kinda-
blood god.
Blood for the blood. Is that where that's from? Really?
I think so.
Man.
Listen, I will not claim to be a Warhammer. I like the 40K.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
More of a space fascism guy.
You know me.
Okay.
Yep.
Instead of a rat fascist.
Speaking of which, Vinny, you have
Yeah.
written another game here next on the list.
Yeah.
Ghost of a Tale.
This will be a very brief one. Ghost of a Tale. We had another mouse game on here, Moss, which I think is a very adorable game. But so is Ghost of a Tale. It is a small game in terms of scale and what they're trying to accomplish, but it is a mouse RPG, which is adorable. I recommend it for folks who like a kind of more traditional RPG from maybe, let's say, 10 years ago. A little clunky, a little rough in spot.
Is it European?
It must be.
Okay. I didn't mean anything by that.
But you dress up your mouse.
Oh, we know what you meant.
You can dress up your mouse in different outfits to kind of get through different areas and have different attributes. And
It's like
that's
Hitman.
kind of like Hitman. And he
there is a
murders-
stealth element
He
to
takes
this
his
game.
tail and murders
Yeah,
people.
okay.
It's just a fun, cute game that kind of dropped out of nowhere for me, and was something I'd just like to mention in the big list of games from the year that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I don't know that it's like a best looking contender by any stretch, but the animation in that game, I remember having like a very distinct feel to it that was nice.
And you get to dress up this mouse in like armor and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and that's cute and adorable.
Now I feel compelled to find out where the developer is from, but it's probably going to take too much time.
We can do that later.
Okay. Next on the list, Burnout Paradise Remastered.
It's
Burnout is quite good.
yeah.
Still.
Burnout Paradise is
turns
a
out.
tremendous racing game, like the open world racing. But you know what? A tremendous driving game. Like the racing part is actually maybe one of the least interesting parts
Yeah, I
about
agree.
it. For me, it's
You mean the jockeying for position,
Yes.
winning
Yeah,
race?
exactly.
The getting first place thing, but like the road rage stuff, and that's still amazing.
no. For me, it's the co-op. For me, it's the co-op challenges.
See, I had never done that the
Yeah.
first time.
that's
The
so
first
fun.
and only time I've ever done that is when we were doing a stream
Yeah.
of it, and like that stuff did seem awesome.
Yeah.
like,
It's
oh,
really
get all
cool.
this, what was it, like get all the air and like you would all combine.
like, oh,
forces and
Everyone
stuff
hit
like
this
that.
ramp.
Yeah,
and-
I had never done that.
Yeah.
That stuff's
Everybody
cool as hell.
do donuts on this airfield.
And like helping each other out about like, oh, you got to drive over here and do this, or yeah, if you want to jump through this ring at the airfield, you need to hit this ramp at this speed, and you know,
Yeah.
like there was just a lot of interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like this weird collaborative driving
Yeah.
puzzle game.
That was
or
all there.
something?
That was all there.
Oh yeah,
Never
it was all
done
The
that.
thing is,
there.
like,
Yeah.
it was all there, like, and maybe it was more impressive 10 years ago because, like, at the
was for
time
sure.
there was like nothing
It was
else
groundbreaking
like
at
it.
the time.
Now it's like, oh, you know, there's been other little, you know, like multiplayer games have come a long way over the last decade. So you know, if you're coming to it now, it's like it's still really cool, but you've probably seen something similar.
I mean, the idea of an open world in the driving game at the time was still pretty.
It
Like
was
Test Drive Unlimited was sort of the only other thing that existed.
Definitely a departure for Burnout.
But for Burnout, being
A
able
divisive
to
one, I
drive around in that open world. I mean, there's some design choices in that, and I didn't play the remastered. I doubt they put this in, but there's no map, right? Aren't you just? You're just. I mean, you can look at the overall map. Sorry, there's no GPS.
Yes, there's no.
Yeah, there's no GPS.
It's just kind of telling you turn like streets that are coming up.
Right, like it'll flash.
Well,
it'll be like,
yeah.
hey, if this
Yeah,
is where the
it-
waypoint is, go turn right. You know,
Yeah,
on this street.
it'll indicate, hey, maybe you should turn here.
Right, but it's like
it'll-
a street sign.
But there isn't
Yeah.
like a line. that
no,
you're
no,
following.
It's
you're
like-
not
it
looking
is-
at a thing in the corner.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
line on the road. It is like the street sign will blink if this is when you're supposed to turn on.
Yes.
And I think also the blinkers on your car.
Oh, is that no kidding?
Which are red, so you, like me, are out of luck.
Because I remember when playing that was like, wow, I remember learning the route from
Yep.
you know the docks to the top of the mountain.
Learn that city.
Which is maybe like brings me to kind of my only problem with that game, which is a problem with the original game where there's only 8 places you can end up.
Yeah.
And so once
Yes.
you're kind of in those zones, they all look like there's multiple ways to approach each destination.
Yeah, but it really becomes about like how do I get out of where I am to get
Yeah.
into the familiar roads where I'm going.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
like there's only 2 ways to the wind farm, 3 ways probably actually, and you're gonna take one of them, and you know instantly from just like where you are on the map which one you're gonna end up on. So like the back third of most races is pretty similar to a lot of other ones. And
I do also wish there was some like easier restart stuff. I think there is some
they
stuff in
added
the controller. It's
that
like,
was when that game first came out. It didn't have it, and they
Yeah.
added a quick restart that is still not.
it's still like
enough.
buried in something that I like never really found.
They were like
But it was-
philosophically against it or something.
I
It was
don't
bizarre.
But I would like bork certain things and just like let me just
Yeah.
I took a wrong turn
just let me
because
get
I
all
don't
the way
know where
back.
I'm supposed to be going.
Oh, am I right in remembering there was no fast travel?
No, there
Yeah,
isn't.
there's
I mean, it's
there's
not
no
a
fast
huge
travel.
map, but
No,
you
it's
would have
not.
to drive. Like,
Yeah.
especially near the end. Once you,
Yeah, when you're like stuck in a little section, it's like I just need to get to that other place. How do I get over
it's
there?
a lot of stuff that like over the decade, like coming back to it now, you know, like, oh right, yeah, they didn't have, and a lot of those they would defend. I think even because the community, I think was even like, why is this not in here? Why is it?
Yeah.
And they would be like, because it doesn't, you know, because the driving is so fun. You know, like they had a lot of pride in the way that they had designed that game, and it's a tremendous video game. It's one of my favorite of all time. And the remaster is really good too.
I think some of the design choices, you would argue that if you need to get back to someplace, pull up to a stop sign, race somebody back to
race
where
your
you
way back
yeah.
there. You know there are going to be plenty of races that going east. So
Right.
Yeah.
Catch one.
I mean, I think, you know, all these things considered, and yeah, so there are definitely some ways in which this game has not aged. The one thing that absolutely feels as good as ever is that wrecking a car in that game feels fucking good.
bouncing down the whole
It
street.
just feels good.
It's fun to drive around. It's
Yeah.
fun to drive around. It's fun to smash stuff. It's fun to smash other cars. It's fun to see your car go slow motion crunch when you accidentally hit like a median.
yeah,
It's cool that they added all that DLC in there.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know,
all
having-
that stuff's in there. Yeah,
I do miss the crash mode stuff from, I think, was it Revenge and Takedown?
Yeah,
yeah,
where it was like a
totally.
puzzle
Sure,
intersection
like
stuff.
Showtime's a different thing.
That was always
Yeah,
the best
yeah.
thing that Burnout ever did, was
Those
that
were
mode.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was just great for me to go back to the driving game that you play when you don't give a shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they don't care if you clip a guardrail, if you
Go
check
through
somebody.
us.
Like you can just play that game however the fuck, and it is not punitive in almost any way.
It's
Like you don't have to be good at driving to have a great time in that.
Totally.
Totally.
yeah.
It's so loose.
Also, a very good soundtrack. Did they get
great
everything
soundtrack.
back?
I believe they got everything back.
the vast majority, at
They
least.
got Paradise City.
Yeah.
That's the one they
That's not
couldn't
the
get.
important song, but okay.
Unfortunately, DJ Atomica came with it.
Yeah.
but,
Well, what are you gonna do?
CSX3 as well.
I don't remember.
I think you might have been.
I also just, I mean, maybe it's a commentary on the times, but I just love how like positive that game is.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just a zest.
bright.
There's a zest to that thing.
Yeah.
The way it presents itself, like the
It's Paradise City. Everybody loves it.
yeah, like the idiot banter of Atomica, and you know what I mean. Like it's just like,
Let's have some
We're so
fun.
excited
like-
to have you here just to break everything.
Yeah.
all
it's
that all that pop punk.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
It's just a good feel good time. Like racing games got so like
Serious.
tude filled.
Well, yeah, but
Like the way Need for Speed went, it was all tuner.
the thing is though, that
Midnight Club.
Midnight
Burnout
Club.
Revenge came before it, and it was way tude filled.
Well, sure.
It tried.
But I can't think of a racing game since this that is this light.
I think Horizon does a pretty good job.
Kind of,
Yeah.
but
The
Horizon's
Horizon's
still
more-
pretty serious.
It's a little more
like, hey, we're
cloying
here
about
for this
it.
festival.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
do a fun thing.
Forza Horizon is Burnout Paradise for your dad. Like
No, that's the
no, it's for you because you
We're the
love
dad.
it.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
You don't want that. Like it's a
still
little
pretty good.
It's good. It's totally good, but it's a little stuffy.
What's the Sony one with all the mud and racing?
Motorstorm?
Motorstorm. Yeah, that was pretty sick.
kinda
I
like
like
Motorstorm.
Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Motorstorm.
I guess I'm thinking street racing in particular.
Sure.
Like cars on asphalt, not
Yeah.
like weird off road stuff. But
Burnout is great. I think it actually this version looks pretty good.
yeah.
It, runs well. The frame rate goes a long way. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think like where I would put it. Like, I'm tempted to say best music because it does have that Avril Lavigne track in it. Rest in peace. And
I am almost inclined to put it under best game.
yeah, I could. Let's have the conversation.
like,
at
sure,
least.
sure.
Let's put it there and have the conversation.
like, I
I
could
think
see-
I'd be hard pressed
still a
to
damn
take a
good game.
10-year-old game over 10 games that came out this year. I feel good about
I
myself.
could
but-
definitely see people objecting to it on procedural grounds, but like just thinking about how much fun I had playing it.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm willing to think about that for a few minutes when we get to that category.
It's still
It's
a lot-
earned that.
It's still a lot of fun.
Best
Okay.
ongoing game. It just keeps on.
Never stops. 10 years in.
Okay, Octahedron.
Yes.
That's the next game on the list.
It is a very cool platformer that I enjoyed a lot. I did not end up finishing it, but I did spend way more time with it than I thought I would. It is a very neon tinged experience where you are. I don't know. I'm trying to remember how to explain it exactly, other than to say it just has this very psychedelic feel, but also really a tight feel to it, which is vital because there's
a long
some
way.
very challenging platforming in this game.
Is it Mega Man Tron, but more platformy than shooty?
Yeah, there's not as much of the shooting.
There's some cool stuff about like creating platforms underneath you and stuff. And I seem to remember as you go forward, you would get different types of platforms and switch between them.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I don't remember exactly how it happened.
Yeah, this one
but
came out early in the year, and like I said, I played a fair amount of it when it first came out, and then I kind of fell off of it. So it's like I don't think this is a thing that's going to factor into category nominations, but I think it was just something that surprised me a lot this year, and it's the sort of game I would normally fall off, but ended up playing way more of than I thought I
It's a
would.
Square Enix game.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not something you'd expect to see them put out.
It's one of those I would kind of throw in the Celeste category, except for how I said I didn't want to go after all the strawberries and everything in Celeste. I did kind of want to like 100% these levels and get all the light bulbs and everything. I found it more fun.
It
in
had
that
very
way.
satisfying, like the challenges for those were very satisfying to
Yeah.
me in a way that I normally don't get with these games.
Yeah, it's good.
And I love I love the style of it. It's definitely doing that neon tinge thing that a lot of sort of pseudo future games kind of try to do, but it's like it's cool.
Do you love the style of
I
it?
kind of do.
Pretty good style.
It's like that's the one thing I would maybe nominate it for.
Okay.
I think it's worth considering. The soundtrack is also very good, but
not to put a category in your mouth, but
yeah,
I'm gonna write that down.
Best
Yeah.
story.
yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right, that's another good chunk of games. I'm gonna move that we take a quick break. Before
Sounds
we come
good.
Back
Okay.
and tackle the next block.
Okay.
We'll see you then. Back with more games.
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 Video
Games.
games.
I don't.
Oh. Video. Okay, no. I don't.
You're
I'm
talking
not-
about
I don't-
board games.
We can
Vidya.
cut that.
I played that Bloodborne board game. It's cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you?
Game of the year.
Great. I love it.
I don't want to say this.
Did you get the timing on the gun down?
No.
Oh, bummer.
This is painful.
What's up?
What?
Sea of Thieves is the next game
Oh,
Why are you pained, Brad?
because Rare made a new video game.
Yeah.
Rare
new
made
video
a
game.
new
That's
video
exciting.
game for the
It's-
first
dreams
time
do come
since
true.
when? When was the last time?
Did Viva Pinata 2.
Right.
The avatars for
Yeah,
the
avatars.
Xbox.
Yeah,
A
like
cameo.
post
Avatar.
post
The avatars.
Trouble in
Oh,
Paradise and Banjo Kazooie. Like, wasn't that kind of
Cameo.
Nuts and bolts.
a cameo? I'm talking
was
about
That's forever
Xbox
ago.
360 launch.
Yeah, I'm saying
Yeah.
since
Oh, and then I guess Viva and yeah.
since
Yes.
those games, like
That's some
I guess they did a Connect Sports or something like that.
They did. They did
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
Connect
yeah.
early
Supposedly,
games.
like some Avatar stuff.
It's theoretically a video game.
Like they didn't make a boxed proper video game for a very long time.
There was that rare collection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
Rare
Rare
Replay
Replay.
is cool.
Yeah.
Rare Replay is cool, but that's
Yeah.
that's an old game.
But it's also just a reminder that hey, Rare sometimes makes really cool video games.
Rare has made some of the best games in history.
Donkey Kong Country was on the SNES Classic.
It sure was. And then this thing seems so promising. Like we played that alpha.
Yeah.
I mean,
You sure saw it at E3, and
Well,
like there's a lot of stuff where you're like,
yeah.
okay, like if this game comes together,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
probably be something real special.
It was
But
right
as a bite-sized experience at E3, like it was extremely exciting because
Yeah.
it showed what it had showed very well in that kind of environment.
Yes.
I
think
do
it
feel
was.
like even in the beta, like the time I spent with the beta, I was really hot on it. I
yeah.
really liked
well,
it.
that was I mean, that was very close to release. Like
Sure,
even
yes, but I'm just saying, like it was once it came out, it didn't have the longevity I was hoping it had, which I
Yeah.
think is partially due to the fact that I don't think a lot of my friends were playing it. I know plenty of people who really loved it, played a lot of it. I think they also kind of role played it a little more.
Well, it was
than
like
I
3 E3s
wanted to
ago.
do.
They showed the first ship stuff. I think it was like 2016. And I was like, all right, the
Sounds
ship
about right.
ship thing
Right.
in this game is cool. Now I can't wait to see what else they have. And then at E3 2017, like they showed the ship stuff again. And I was like, huh, where's the
what do you do?
rest of this?
What's
in
the
this
meat?
game?
Yeah, this game is interesting to me because I feel like it has both so much and so little. Like the sailing, there was so much minute detail in it that I
Yeah.
found really rad and really awesome with like, hey, we're all gonna work on the same boat and like I'm gonna work on the sails and you're gonna watch the map and you're gonna look at the compass and you're gonna turn the ship or whatever it is. And that stuff was awesome. And like when we were all working together, it was great. And then it just got to a point where it's like, well, we're still sailing. I'm kind of ready to be there.
Yeah.
How much
Well-
can I like drink and barf?
Yeah.
The day we did that
ran
stream,
out of stuff to do.
the day we did that stream, I was like so energized for this
Yes.
game. I was like, this is the coolest co-op shit I have ever seen. We're working a pirate ship. We're gonna go somewhere and have fun pirate adventures, and then like Those adventures.
Remember when you shot that
Yeah.
skeleton?
Never
Well,
manifested.
like, by the end of that stream, I was done with that game.
I thought it was
yeah.
gonna be like a
And-
Destiny type thing.
Right. I thought there would be
Right.
some kind of character progression, some kind of something.
Yeah,
Something, yeah, something.
It's definitely very frustrating that it was like a loot-based game, but like the loot was all cosmetic. You really couldn't. It had like the random character customization, which was so frustrating and backwards considering
Yeah.
what that game is. Like, I just wanted to make
man.
a cool-looking pirate who hopefully like it was really frustrating for me that when I got new stuff, when it like I got my fucking loot back in there and
Your
I was like
ghost
buying my
mug.
stuff, it was just like. I thought this would do something, but it just looks different.
Yeah.
And I
Only
wish
somewhat,
I
those
wish it
just, like,
offered
skins on the same
Yeah.
items, and like the process of getting them was just like
Right.
this is beyond tedious.
I did enjoy. I do think that I think it had a lot of cool stuff. I just wish it was a more lasting experience because I really did like a lot of the stuff with like, oh, you're gonna get a treasure chest, and this treasure chest makes you move like you're drunk when you hold it,
Yeah.
or like it cries and you have to
Yes.
constantly bail all the water out of your ship.
Yes, like a crying
Or-
treasure chest is a
yes.
cool idea.
That's
it needed like
awesome.
800 more of those, and it would have been a really cool.
Yes.
Like
The problem isn't that the game isn't fun. It's that it just the parts that are fun do not sustain.
the foundation is
Yeah.
there for an incredible game without much content.
Yeah.
in it. Like
Right.
there's just not that much to do.
I
And like
feel like
there's like
this is-
one enemy type,
Yeah.
maybe two, because
Or,
it's
like-
like this powered up
Right, yeah,
skeleton.
Like, is the
And the
skeleton
gun
wearing
shooting
armor,
felt
or is it?
bad.
Well, even the pirating, and maybe this has changed because I haven't gone back to it. But when you would steal somebody's ship and then kick them off the ship, or they would just respawn on
Yeah,
that ship again,
yeah.
and you're like, "But I'm a pirate. I'm supposed to take this
Yeah,
ship, right?"
you got
And it's like,
nothing for stealing stuff.
you
But
just
there was
have
like
to
a lot
leave.
of like griefing on. I know people had a lot
Yeah.
of frustrations with like I'm just respawning on my ship, getting immediately killed by this crew who's taking over my ship. I can't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if they fixed that. I fucking hope so.
I
but-
read like Twitter threads of people recounting these like amazing emergent sort of
Same.
encounters they had
Yeah.
with other players, and like this hour-long like pitched battle, and we stole
like
the ship.
hiding treasure
Yeah.
while you're on the run.
Like
and-
we waited for them to loot this hard thing, and then we swooped in and killed them and took it and turned it in ourselves, and so that stuff sounds amazing, but like I couldn't invest the time in that game to hope I saw something like that and then come away without it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you didn't know when you got in there if anything like that would happen to you, or if you would just sail around by yourself for an hour and then turn it off, which is what happened. Like I played it like 3 times by myself the first week it came out, and like almost never saw another person. And then I did one like 2-hour session of good 4-player stuff. And at the end of it, I was just like, everybody in that session was like, oh, I guess we've seen what this game has. Let's not play this again.
I will say I did. There's just so much that I really did love about this game.
Yeah.
Marred with like
Totally.
just dull nothingness. But I did love like, oh, I'm on like a small ship just for me, and like it was so smartly designed. Of like I can look at the map from where I am. I can adjust all the sails I need to from where I am. I don't need to have to do the running around like I would on a larger ship designed for more people. And I just think that kind of stuff is like so smart and so well done and like fun to play. And just kind of like this weird, intuitive, kind of like immersive sailing world.
Totally.
So it was frustrating that like, then what?
Right. Yeah.
All the like verbal navigation, like one person's
Yes.
looking at the map while the other person's like moving the wheel, and somebody's working the rigging. Like all that cooperative stuff was so cool.
Yeah.
But then to what end? Like
Yeah.
what were you going to do that in service of? And there was not
Even the kind of
anything.
like cooperative instrument playing felt like you take out the instrument and then they just play along, and you have no agency over what you're
Yeah.
actually doing. The things that they put in there to be cooperative did not feel like I was interacting with you
Yeah.
as much as I should be.
Right.
Like,
Aside from the sailing, which I thought was cool.
But even the sailing sometimes felt like 4 people doing independent things to do one thing, right? Like
sure,
it was,
but there was like I like that you had to like communicate about it and be like, hey, let's turn this way. You have to
Right.
put this sail down,
I
or
think-
halfway down,
yeah.
or whatever it is.
It was the better part of that. Like
Yeah.
it seemed like they spent the most time figuring that out in the design, in the how it worked. The part where more people on the wheel to bring the anchor up makes it go
Yes.
faster. But small things like being able to clink your cup or something, like ways that you would be on a ship and be like, "Hey, we're all here together." It just felt weird. Like I felt like I was reaching for fun. Like I was really trying to be like, let me drink again and barf on you. Let me try and barf in the sky. Let me try and like,
I mean,
what can I do?
that stuff was fun. Like barfing in a bucket and then throwing it on
Yeah.
somebody
And,
was
like
fun.
shooting people out of cannons
Like yes,
was fun.
like all that said, you can stuff yourself into a cannon and shoot yourself onto an island. Like that stuff's cool, but the first time you do it, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
10th
the
time you do
novelty
it,
is just not there long
yeah.
term.
There's not the variety of stuff to sustain your
It
interest.
seems like a game that should have like not been sold. Like it should. This is a game that like in the context of hey, sign up for Game Pass and
Yeah.
pay $0 additional for this product.
Sure.
And then you can play it with your friends at a very low risk to you.
right.
Like that makes a little more sense in terms of like, okay, this is an ongoing service that I did not have to invest in up front because I'm already paying for this service.
Was this the game that they launched that with? The day one thing?
It was right.
Okay.
Yeah,
You want it to be PlayStation Home?
yes, exactly. Like that game should have been free, like PlayStation Home, or part of. Like only part of Game Pass or something. It was the idea where you're like, hey, pay $60 for this shell of an experience that you'll like be done with in an hour.
You'll mess around with it, then you'll be like, oh, well, I didn't pay anything for it, whatever.
Exactly, If it's just like, oh, well, this is a thing that I have access to because I signed up for this other thing to play these other games.
Right.
That makes a little more sense, and they've added content.
So
I'm not interested because like
I am, but it's just like
the time investment and all that other stuff to like go back to it and be like, oh, well, what's here now? That should have probably been here to begin with because there was nothing there to begin with.
But I mean,
I
can
better
work.
stuff to do.
I mean, look at Destiny and Taken King. I mean,
No
they
Man-
do it right.
No Man's
That
Sky,
counts.
like-
Absolutely. Updates can definitely make a game better, but like my initial experience with this was so rotten that I'm just like, forget it. Like what?
Did you feel like this was more barren than like when Destiny first came out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Destiny had a full story and
Oh, yeah.
progression and
I
all this
also-
other stuff.
I mean,
they're different games.
Ultimately, of course.
Like the expectations are weird because I think we were like, oh well, is there going to be like a leveling up and they start saying it's an online world and it's connected? So does that mean it's like Pirate Destiny or like
Right.
But no.
I also feel like it's a game that should really encourage exploration and like finding
Yeah.
stuff and like. But I felt like the islands felt so barren to me, where like you kind of did the treasure and there was
just
like this sort of light
repetitive.
puzzling.
Yeah.
But like I didn't feel like I was rewarded for like poking around. Like I want to find those kind of like weird little like story bits of like, oh, I can like piece together like what happened to these people on this like deserted island or whatever it is. Like truly anything, but just go to an island, dig up a treasure chest and bring it
And then
back
you
to my
level up
ship.
with all the factions, and you know you started seeing the people that became the ultimate pirate, and you're like, oh, you get to all right. Here's more nothing for you.
Yeah.
Like,
To me,
great.
the biggest bummer is the fact that, like how Vinny mentioned, the pirating aspect of it seems just to underdeliver. Like, you're a pirate, you should be able to steal things and grief. Like, it's a game about griefing a little bit, you know, to a minor degree. But the fact that none of that has any repercussions in the game world is a bummer.
I get them wanting to protect people's experience from being too unpleasant. You know, maybe you have hardcore servers or something.
But I feel like
where
they
all
don't even
theft
do.
is
They
final.
didn't even do that very well.
Right.
You know, like that was the thing.
Because
It was
people
like
are still getting grief.
Yeah, it just but like griefed in an unfun way.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, but I got pirated.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, oh, I
I'm
got
still
camped
getting
and-
pirated.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it is a tough thing to manage a bit of that griefing versus enjoyment, but there needs to be risk. And for some of that stuff, there needs to be risk and reward. So if you sink a ship or if you're going to engage in a naval battle, because a lot of the times when I played, we didn't have treasure on a ship. So what was the risk in just going out there? I wasn't going to lose anything.
Yeah.
And when
I will say, if you don't have treasure on your ship, you're basically not playing the game because that's all there is to do.
But you spend so much time getting to the island to get the treasure that why not just go out and try and see if somebody else has treasure? But you don't know if they have treasure on their ship before you start engaging them. But there's very little risk. If I were at risk of losing my ship or some kind of penalty, I feel like the tension stacks a lot higher.
They had talked about penalty stuff, but like just after release, they were like, "Oh, we're looking at doing penalties for players," and people were like, "Hey, this game is so barren and broken right now. If you're just going to make, if you're going to stack the deck against us even more, what do you even just?" They backed away.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the design. Best design practices would be for that, but like I said, my biggest problem with it was I feel like, and it's a kind of a big sin because I do generally feel like I can have a good time in a sandbox. I felt like I was forcing myself to have fun. I was really digging and looking for it, and it's one of those things I wanted to have fun in that game, and I kept being like, we're having fun, right? This is fun.
Of anyone I know, Vinny, no one can make their own fun in a game quite like you. And if you were struggling with it, that I think is an indictment right there.
It was one of those things where you just felt like this should be fun, but I feel like I'm a wet towel here. Like I'm just not. It's not clicking.
Yeah.
I think it had like interesting moments, like I think seeing like a storm in the distance
Yeah,
and then going
like,
into the middle of it
is-
and like having your ship capsize is like that's really rad.
Great looking.
the
game.
atmosphere is
Yes.
amazing. This is like probably the best looking water ever in a video game.
Best water, hands down.
Mario Sunshine looked pretty good.
Okay.
Get out. And again, sailing that first time we did it, that first stream we
awesome.
did, like just the sailing, just making the boat go in and of itself was incredibly
And like
satisfying.
hearing about stuff like drop the anchor and you'll like turn quickly.
Yes.
And, like
all that stuff and working together to make it happen was super satisfying right up until you're like, all right, we've kind of got this down now, and what next?
What do we
And There
do?
wasn't much next.
yeah.
For me, it was a bit disappointing.
Sounds like
More than a bit.
Yeah.
probably
Do
put
we
it on
think
that.
it belongs in like a best looking category because
could
of
see
that
it.
stuff?
Well,
I could see
yeah,
it in best
kinda.
looking or maybe best moment or sequence. 'Cause I
I'm
do
gonna-
think there are some exciting moments that happened in it, but
I don't feel like I ever got that emergent, like that, you know that feeling when everything comes together and all the mechanics are working and crazy
Yeah.
shit happens. Like
Sure.
I never quite got that.
Yeah.
Neither did I. I do think it had the potential.
Well, I don't even know if I'd go that far because I don't think the tools are there. I don't think it enables that kind of gameplay because there just aren't enough things you can do.
Oh, I mean, even above, like a level above that on a pitch level of like,
Yeah.
a 4-player open world cooperative
Sure.
pirate game
Yes.
made by Rare
Yeah.
on paper is something that I am very in for.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the reality of it for me was disappointing.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I actually think some of the music was okay in it when it kicked in, but it is piratey. It is totally
I remember
correct.
a ton of it.
Yeah. It was all right.
But I would go for me. It's on the disappointing.
Yeah.
The only moments I really had were kind of like the ones you addressed before of like when you hit everything and the sails fill up for the first time with wind and somebody's on the steering wheel and people are on the. But even that for me was short lived.
Yeah, it was great for that afternoon that we did it.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of it. Yeah, I put it under best looking. I think like, the water is mind blowing, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
the storms and
I
some
can
of the
see it.
atmosphere with the
Yeah.
sunsets that they get going are really good. I don't want to keep harping on this game, but I just think about how much personality their games always have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like
like the
the-
one key thing.
Yeah, like Viva Pinata is like bursting with charm. Like Banjo is really goofy and funny, and the writing is clever, and there's all these rhyming couplets and blah blah blah. And then you get to this game, and like the shopkeepers aren't even designed to make eye contact with you. They just sort of they might track you around with their eyes, but like they have no dialogue. Like they never emote. They just stand there, and you run up and hit a prompt and like access an inventory.
Do you remember
Like
the
it just feels kind of lifeless.
Do you remember the excitement we had when we were watching the Microsoft presser when they announced it? Not when we actually saw any real like gameplay or anything. I think it was just that teaser. It was
Yeah.
clear, hey, this is a pirate game and it's made by Rare.
Yeah.
I think all of us were just
man.
like, before
Yeah.
we even knew what it was supposed to be, it's like, oh my god, this could be awesome.
So excited.
And then I just feel like everything subsequently was just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, man.
oh.
I'm not even a huge Rare fan, but a pirate game sounds like something that'd be right up their alley.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me where I got off was when, and it's a design choice, and I understand what I did, but making all the upgrades cosmetic and
Yeah.
and realizing that
Yeah.
my gun is never going to get stronger or my
And
sword,
it's bad.
and it's not
Yes.
great
Yeah.
to begin with, right?
Right.
And being like,
combat felt bad
Yeah.
all the time.
The
There
sword
was- it
stuff,
never
like,
got
just,
better.
ugh.
Like, yeah. It's just such a bummer. Because there was like so much I really truly did love about that game. And like so much in the cool detail of it. And like in the sort of like minute to minute kind of like sailing stuff. And just like, seeing people look and seeing like their little like eyeglass reflect from like a distance was like so rad. And like
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
smaller
there were-
moments
yeah.
I thought were awesome.
Like,
And like
putting-
those kind of attention to detail was great. And then just going to an island and being like, there is literally nothing for me here.
Yeah.
Was frustrating.
Like putting out your lanterns at night so that people couldn't see your ship in the
Yes,
distance
yeah.
and
It's
make,
like,
so
that
that you
stuff is,
wouldn't
like,
get boarded.
so
That's
cool.
awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder how like they were able to think through things like that, but just couldn't think through to the part where like people will immediately get over that first hump and
Yeah.
have nothing left to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
They built an amazing framework and then didn't
Right.
wrap,
and
wrap anything
unfortunately,
around it.
I am not one of those patient people who will like role play into a game and like find those encounters myself. I just don't have it in me. Like I wish the game offered that for me.
I can get into that, but there needs to be more there to work with, and it's
Yeah.
just not there. All that said, I still want to go back and see what they've been adding to it because
Yeah,
they have
I'd
been
be
pumping
curious
out a bunch
too.
of content packs. I just need some like master list of like here's what state the game is in now. Here's
Right.
what each of these things did. Here's whether it's worth playing yet or not. But I don't know if we'll ever get there. I hope so. A Way Out. Alex, you put this on here.
I did.
Joseph Fares, I believe
Yes.
is his name, the director of Brothers.
Brother.
Yes.
We are the brothers.
Uh-huh.
We are the ones.
Wait,
There were not 10. Well, I think it was my number 2 game of the
Really?
year. But yeah, that year. Yeah, but I was very fond of Brothers.
Yeah.
Great game.
It's a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And the initial pitch for A Way Out, which was this sort of slick cinematic crime story done from a co-op perspective of 2 guys who were breaking out of prison, and there's a lot of subsequent story after that.
Like
but
mandatory co-op.
yes,
You can
mandatory
only
co-op.
play it in co-op.
Yes,
Split screen, and it did have online.
It did,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but it was always
It was
you'd always
always
see the
split screen. Yeah, like cinematic. Like it was the shots were designed so that it was the frame was constantly moving around depending on whose perspective was more important. Like conceptually, this is all extremely cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool at E3, especially.
Yeah.
Like this is a rad concept I was excited for, and then never played because I heard.
And it's been a while since I've seen a game under deliver on a kind of that kind of promise the way that A Way Out does. The thing I think it does well is the actual co-op interactions are generally clever. Like, they're not necessarily like mind-blowing, but like the way the game makes you work with your partner, I think it's smart enough and engaging enough to kind of carry you through. The problem is that tonally, it is just all over the goddamn place. Like, it is, that game either needed to be Heat level deathly serious or Fled level completely flippant. One of those two. It tries to thread the needle with both and hits neither.
Does it seem intentional? Does it seem like they were trying to have it both ways? Like they knew what they were doing, or they just were not?
I think they just don't have the chops.
Okay.
I think the thing they were trying to make, it's not, the dramatic arc of it is largely terrible. The voice acting is wildly inconsistent the whole way through. The story doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, which you can forgive if like the heist parts of it or the escape parts of it are like cool enough. And there are some scenes, like the actual prison break sequence in that game, I think is done pretty well. But a lot of what comes after it is just this like bad, not good feeling shooting. Like a lot of like there's a crime lord that like, framed both the main characters, and like the revenge story around him just isn't interesting for the most part. And so you don't really feel anything about what these guys are like doing with themselves other than the prison break being kind of fun.
And all of the co-op stuff and the actual gameplay parts of it feel very rigid. Like there's not any real wiggle room. It's like, well, here's the part where you do the thing with the toilet, and I'll do the thing where I look back and forth. And
do you get to choose at any point? Is it like,
I think there might be like
the
I'll go
toilet
left
thing?
or I think there's some of that Gears of War, like I'll take the top path.
Yeah.
I can't remember specifically.
But there isn't like there isn't a lot of room for variation. It's just kind of like there are two set things that need to be done, and sometimes you can just kind of pick which one.
And the interactions where it's like, oh, unscrew this thing. They feel like a lot of Mario Party mini games without the grander fun of Mario Party.
What?
Or the rich fiction.
Yes, exactly. You get it. Yeah.
Like there's
cast of characters.
There's a couple of moments, like there's a part where like the guy who is voiced by Joseph Ferris's brother, like he goes back home and is supposed to have like this bonding moment with his kid, and it is one of the most like comically inept attempts at like emotional resonance I've seen in a game in a long time.
Like
like
trailer park.
It's the trailer park and like the basketball scene.
yes.
Yeah, it's pathetic how bad it is. And then they have the fucking gall. They have the fucking gall to just straight up do the Heat ending at the end of that game. Like of course, there's a twist where, you know, the partners end up turning on each other and they're hunting each other. It's not an airport, it's like a factory. But it's definitely like hey, whoever gets the last shot off ultimately is the winner of the game.
So it's Final Fight or like that Splinter Cell co-op mode.
And they do
End of Double Dragon.
and they do the bit where straight up the guy who wins walks up and fucking puts his hand out, and the other guy puts his hand out, and the camera kind of pulls back as the guy dies, and it is just like none of these characters matter enough for this to have any emotional weight whatsoever. It sucks.
Man.
I was really bummed out by this game. I don't know if that comes across or not.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah,
too.
I wanted to like this one.
It feels
I
very
didn't play
fairly
it, but-
definitive.
Yeah.
How? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How? I guess I would say flexible are the difficulty levels, because like I think about like the fact that you have to find another person to play this with,
Right.
and like I would probably play through with my girlfriend if I was going to play
It's
it.
not difficult. There's
But-
not
but
enough
like-
to the gameplay.
But I imagine, you know, some people maybe are not up to like third person shooting if they don't play a lot of games, and like I wonder. I guess I'm asking like, would it be easy to get somebody who's not like a frequent player of video games to accompany you through this thing?
I mean, my girlfriend is not a frequent player of these kinds of video games. Like, she plays other stuff, but she has never really been like third-person action type person. And we played through it together, and there were a couple of little communication hiccups here and there, but like generally she understood what needed to be done at any given moment. You know,
not a lot of demanding aiming or anything like
No,
that.
Not a lot of Twitch action or gunplay or anything. It's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, here's the timing thing where both of you hit this thing when the thing hits the middle or whatever.
Like, the gunplay isn't hard, it just doesn't feel good. You know, it's similar to like Hitman's gunplay, where it's like the shooting does not have necessarily the satisfying punch it would in a game where the shooting is more the focus. But it's not challenging. Like, the dudes die pretty quick, and the AI is not like, you know, super smart or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a game I was really looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Both for the pedigree and just the concept, and it really did not deliver for me on any level beyond a basic enjoyment of doing the cooperative activities with my girlfriend. That was about it.
The concept was fun of just this really cool like couch split screen thing where you're both doing separate things towards the same goal and everything, but it just doesn't, you know, cookies and cream.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
A way better execution on this concept.
Exactly.
Also, the most inexplicable toilets in any game I saw this year.
Oh yeah, the pipes are all weird.
Yeah, because like you would
Where's
pull the
that poop
toilet
go?
away, and it's like there's no pipes behind it. It doesn't make any sense. Like
Yeah.
where is this going?
Single-use toilet.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, the game's a bummer.
I think it's a
Yeah.
very disappointing game.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming from the guy who made Brothers, that's
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. I will write that on that list.
Okay.
That's a shame. Okay. Far Cry 5, anybody?
Oh man, we're just like moving through this train. This was a rough patch of the year.
Yeah.
For video games.
Yeah. I don't know that I ever got out of the first area. There's the 3 bosses, right? I don't think I ever even beat the first one, but
I don't think I did either.
I
I,
spent-
enjoyed my
I think
time
I-
with it,
I-
and
yeah,
was
I think
like,
I got
this
close.
is the most video game.
It
It's
was very-
like doing its job. It's satisfying, and I'm fine to never play it again.
I had fun playing it as a Far Cry game, like
Yeah.
setting aside what it could have been and was not.
Right. It
but-
is intensely repetitive and sets off on a like there's a direction to this game that like you could do a lot with the kind of like hey, we're going to Montana and cult leaders and religious cult and
Anti-government,
anti-government type
militia.
stuff, militia business like that you could probably do some really interesting things with, and this feels so watered down.
Yeah, I was so bummed.
Yeah, like very toothless. Like just that they just completely like at some point someone had a really edgy idea and then took it to someone who said, we have to sell copies of this, right? And they're like, okay.
And yet they still pitched it as
And
a
that
pretty
they
edgy
still
thing.
Right.
pitched it as the edgiest thing that you've ever heard,
Like,
and
look,
it
this
was
can't-
not that at all.
I also feel like tonally it was like all over the place. Where I would do like that one mission where you get Boomer the dog, and like clearly everyone's been killed, and it's like really dark and like sad. But then there are also just like me going around and like fucking stuff up and like goofing and like making
like,
these
very
crazy
goofball
explosions.
characters,
Yeah,
and
cheeseburger. And like
totally. And that's kind of like Far Cry
Right.
has been a lot of that over
Yeah.
time, where it's like, here's
Yes.
kind of a wacky mission that's on the side,
Or like-
and the main stuff's going to be a little more
Yeah.
grim. But yeah,
Who's the guy who always pops up in every Far Cry?
Herc,
Oh yeah.
Is that him?
Hunk, Herc,
I think the
Herc.
tonal stuff was pretty apparent by the time we saw it at E3, and like after the super serious, we're going to talk about politics and stuff, and then
Yeah.
it's like, hey, blow some shit up, planes,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, what are you going for here?
At some point, somebody in the management at some point was like, "This game can't end up on Fox News. Come on."
It was just it was intensely boring. I think as someone who has played all of the Far Cry games back through. Well, I didn't finish 2 because I just didn't like it.
Primal.
2 is such
I
a
finished
weird.
Primal.
You did?
I reviewed Primal.
2 is such
yeah.
a weird, different
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
It's
So
weird.
I'm saying like modern Far Cry
yeah.
from 3 forward.
Yeah, everything is made in the image of 3 at this
and-
point.
They went back to the well too many times on that stuff. I think by the end of Far Cry 4, it was like, okay, like I need a bigger change. Primal was not that bigger change, and this game is not either.
I
And,
think-
and it's just severely disappointing.
Is this it for that style of Far Cry?
I
it
think
should
I think
be.
we're well past it.
That's where I felt
Yeah,
on it.
you
It was
know.
just like I did not realize how fatigued I was
Yeah.
on this until
May-
I had fun playing with you.
Maybe
Yeah,
like
like co-op actually,
Yeah, I
like
really
when
enjoyed the
you
co-op.
completely ignore the story
Yeah.
and you're just like fuck it,
Goofing
let's go
around.
do stuff. Like there's fun to be had.
Yeah.
But
We were having this conversation about whether this format was getting old around the time 4 came out. Because remember,
Yeah.
4 was so much like 3.
Right.
I remember if you go back to that game
yes.
here, we
Yeah,
were talking about like,
totally.
Yeah.
it is more 3, but it's still good.
It was only
And
the
then they did
second
Primal
one.
and this.
Yeah,
and
now
it's
it's
like, we're
just
way
like,
past
yes,
that
like,
now.
come on.
I started to say in a world where they didn't crank out Primal, maybe this is okay, but I didn't play Primal, and it's still kind of a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
No, I-
Blood Dragon was cool because it was this weird
Right.
alt
Yeah,
take, and
yeah.
then it just diminishing returns.
And then, yeah, 4 was good and probably like a better game, but less impressive and all
Right.
that stuff. But yeah, by the time we're at this point, and just the things they did with weapons in that game in terms of just like, hey, there's a lot of opportunities to microtransact your way into different weapons and stuff like that stuff just. You didn't need to do it, but it resulted in a lot of cases of like, okay, I'm finishing the story with these weapons, and now you're like, oh, we have this community event, and you can earn more guns. I'm like, I don't care. Like,
I feel like they didn't even
you don't need it.
They didn't breadcrumb any of the weapon stuff well at all. Because
No.
I played through almost the entire first area with the same rifle, not knowing I could go get you have to go buy them,
Right.
and they I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think they tell you that. I kept thinking like, surely enemies will start dropping better guns, and I'll get better guns, and they never did. And then I finally found out it's like, oh, you have to go to the store and buy them.
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably because they are tied into microtransactions.
Maybe, yeah. And there was the cool like Far Cry arcade mode, like a map editor and all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
like conceptually really interesting but in practice, like here's a bunch of really terrible deathmatch maps and some other stuff like that. It didn't have the staying power.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the end at all? Because I heard how crazy it was, and then I had to go see it myself.
I haven't finished it yet.
I never finished it.
It's dumb. You go and arrest.
Pretty fucking dumb.
Yeah,
as far as like dumb goes.
Yeah, you go and get the cult leader, and I'm trying to remember it
the
because
nukes?
honestly, yeah. So
they're nukes.
The rest of the world is being nuked.
So there's a lot of So the whole thing is you're isolated in Montana and you don't really know what's going on in the outside world.
Okay.
There's a point in the radio transmissions where early on where you hear a little bit of news where you're like, oh, things with Korea are really south, like it's not really going well. And so like at the end of that game, theoretically, I guess a nuclear war has started.
That's unrelated to the
that
cult.
Is unrelated to the cult. But
Why?
then
That's a great question, Abby.
That's because I came into this not really being that burnt out on the Far Cry games, and I liked it. I thought it was fun enough. It felt very much like it wasn't doing anything surprising, but what it was doing was like relatively satisfying. I enjoyed clearing out the fucking
clearing out the
base
stuff.
That stuff is
it
still
works.
fun.
Like
It's
once,
still good.
once I accepted that all the writing in the story was ridiculous, I had a good time tooling around in the world,
but
just
I
doing
think
Far
for
Cry
me,
stuff.
I would have been more engaged and more inclined to finish it if the cult was just more interesting.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they could have that's such a cool premise, like a cult that you're against and like you're kind of cut off from everyone. Like
It
that's such
actually
an interesting premise that
reminds
they
me-
fucking boned.
Yeah, like every like the open world stuff, fine. Every time they pull you into some self-contained story mission in like a warehouse or some hideout where you have to fight through a thing to get
And
out.
it's all the same, right? They all like tranquilize you.
Exactly.
And,
Well,
like,
right.
you
Well, that's a
it's
separate thing. So-
yeah, that's the thing where like you eventually hear someone shout out, "You shoot him with the blitz
yeah,
bullet."
so those are two separate things. First of all, those story missions are not good, but second of all, like far more damning is that they fucking show up and interrupt the good time you're having in the open world
to kidnap
to
you,
drag
to
you
drag
into
you
those
into
a
this
bad
stupid
story
shit.
And like every time that happened, I was like, no, dude, I was having fun driving that pickup truck. What are you doing?
Also, like,
and they do it like go back to that like
Yeah.
2 or 3 times over
Yeah.
the course of the story
Like,
where you're just like, what the fuck
I actually
are you
just
doing?
realized that's the last time that happened was the last time I played that game because
Really?
I kept getting
Yeah.
interrupted to do these bad story missions.
Also, the game was like so fucking buggy. Like I couldn't get over how many bugs I encountered, especially ones that made it so like I had to restart a mission.
Yeah.
Like
I
this
definitely-
helicopter
yeah.
didn't show up when it needed to. Like I can't pet this dog and now I can't finish the fucking
Yeah,
boomer
some button
mission.
prompts that don't show up
Yes.
and just like weird shit like that.
Yeah, or like,
there was some rough stuff around the edges.
I
for
like
sure.
jumped on a thing and then my body flew up in the air and now I'm dead.
I had
like
a
it was so
mission where
weirdly glitchy.
Yeah,
Vinny,
yeah.
our skydiving thing when I was like
So
inside you in the air or whatever. Yeah, like,
A bug or a feature.
So tandem skydiving.
yeah. I think one of us had a flamethrower.
I think unfortunately for Far Cry, a lot of the things that made that series unique, other people have just started doing. Name a game that doesn't do a big open world now, right? Or that where you can
Sure.
explore.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Far Cry's hook, right? Was
Yeah.
it's huge, roam around, do whatever you want, and now it's every game's
Three was like a
and-
revelation. Like
Yeah.
I was blown away by that game.
And they have not evolved that meaningfully since.
I mean, they've
Uh,
added
and
stuff, but
They've
it's
added,
nothing-
but
it's
like
nothing-
it's
nothing-
that, you know,
yeah.
and
I did like the companion stuff. I kind of liked.
Like having the dog.
I
or
like
whatever.
the
like
fact
the
that they
random people with random
were
perks on them.
no the story, the named ones
Oh,
that you
yeah.
could like because they all had archetypes. So it's like, oh, this guy's a sniper, this lady is melee.
Right.
Like you can kind
Like
of
the
pick.
bartender
You
lady
could
or
pick how
whatever.
you wanted them
Right.
to complement your play style, and I thought that was kind of neat.
Was he a sniper?
Yeah.
Okay.
I seem to remember
I like
people
Cheeseburger the Bear.
complaining that like it was a little bit unbalanced and that the sniper would just win you missions
Yeah,
by herself.
totally.
Like quiet.
Yeah, you just push you like push right on the D-pad and kills people, and you're like, all right, great. They did make that that has been worse, I think, in previous games with some of that stuff. But in terms of just like, oh, I can call in some people and take over the space really quietly. Like in some ways, though, that meant that like AI reactions to you infiltrating a base were like broken and not realistic. Of just like someone gets dropped on one side of the camp, and then people on the other side are like, what? And you're like shooting with a silenced weapon and all this other stuff, and like so some of that stuff was buggy too, and. Yeah, it just it's a huge missed opportunity on the story front because I think the premise of that has a lot of promise, but then like when you get to the end of the game and you're like, oh, I guess I'm locked in this bunker with this cult leader now, and then oh, what happened? Oh God, who cares? Like, and then the alternate takes on that because ever since they had that weird 10-minute ending thing, they had to have that. They got to do that in Far Cry now too. That's got to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like every like good idea they had, they've now drilled to death in sequels, and like they need to stop making these.
or at least take more time and turn them into something different.
Like give it the Assassin's Creed treatment.
Take a break.
Like
maybe longer.
Well, whatever it takes. I mean, like Origins hit for people. Like they were into it. Like they did what they needed to do to make that, to revitalize that series, and they should do the same for this.
What I will say about this game is it looks very nice.
It is a very
It looks very good.
Yeah,
great looking world.
I think potentially I would nominate it for like a best looking game because I think like as far as like realism goes, it had like beautiful vistas. It's like this lovely like environment. Everyone looked good.
I guess I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it. I don't know. I
don't know if it'll win necessarily, but it struck me as something that was like, this is beautiful.
I wrote it on the list.
Look how nice this
is.
That's
fine.
I do think it belongs on most disappointing though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I will put it there as well.
Yeah, for me, I kind of could take it or leave it on anything, and I think that just speaks to I kept forgetting this game came out this year.
I don't think it'll even win most disappointing.
Right.
I think it's one of those things that was like, I had fun with it when I played it. I didn't finish it, and I never thought about it again.
I do remember the week they announced it, like on the podcast, just talking like, man, this could be like they could really be going for it with this.
Maybe
this could actually
this series needed.
This could be especially after that first pitch meeting,
like,
where they were like, "Oh, this part's just on background because of how fucking intense it is, man."
Yeah.
And then they walked us through this scenario of like the things they did to research the game, and you're like, "Oh man, that sounds really intense." And then like, no, like none of that was like meaningfully represented in the game.
Yeah,
no.
Like the idea of the franchise having some like a degree of relevance that it had not had before,
totally. Like
was exciting.
Doesn't like it blew it.
Yeah,
they had a really strong opportunity there that
that
got away from.
I still think 4 is the best one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, I've put it under best looking and most disappointing. And that brings us to Moonlighter.
Yes. Did anyone else play Moonlighter?
No, I wanted to play it.
It's really good. I liked it a lot.
I think I've said it on the regular podcast. The thing they did that shot themselves in the foot with me is they put out a roadmap of all the cool stuff they were going to add for it, like right when it came out.
Oh, I don't know about this.
It was on the Steam page. There was like a nice infographic of like, here's our like next 6 updates, and it was all this stuff like new bosses, new weapons, new blah blah blah, like all this extra stuff. And I was like, well, this looks cool, but what if I wait 6 months for like all this extra stuff to be in there?
Yeah, I guess I was satisfied with the amount of stuff it had, so I didn't necessarily need that. But I really like this game a lot. So the whole mechanic of the game is you are like a shop owner and you're trying to keep your shop going. But at night you go into the dungeons and you fight beasts and you collect loot and then you sell it in the shop, or you like collect material as well. And then you use the money you earn from the shop to like update your town and like open new stores and sort of.
Is it kind of like Stardew Valley in that regard?
I have not played Stardew Valley.
I think I saw some comparisons to that.
The
I definitely saw people say it was like that.
Right.
Racketeer?
Different
Racketeer. Like Racketeer.
Different one.
Reciteer. It's a
Reciteer.
I also heard Racketeer.
It doesn't look like it.
I thought this game did a really good job with the balance of all of those things, though. Because usually by the time I was kind of like felt done in the dungeons, my bag was full and was like ready to go back to the top. I felt good to go in there. I was satisfied with the amount of time I spent. And then by the time I was done kind of selling stuff to people and be like, okay, I'm ready for this to end, was when it ended, the day was done, and I could go back and do my stuff. Like, I felt like the balance was really good.
Good loop.
It was a very good loop. And I really felt like I was getting stronger. I was getting better. My weapons felt like they were getting better. And I felt like I could cater the weapons I got and the weapons I upgraded to how I like to play the game, which I also enjoyed.
Do you have to make the choice between like, am I going to keep this weapon or sell it in my shop?
You mean like, could you use the weapons that were also?
You could sell them, yeah. But I found that I was mostly, because sometimes I would keep the weapons to then upgrade them. And usually, because the whole thing of the mechanic as well is like, I have to figure out what's the correct price for this item. So when it's like a small item, I sell like 1 or 2, and like, oh, this is really cheap. It's selling like hotcakes. I need to make it higher. And then like, now it's too much or whatever. And it's like finding that balance. And with weapons, I found that I didn't have like an abundance to figure out the right price. So usually I wasn't worried about selling them anyway. I had so much other stuff.
Is there anything in there that helps you like track supply and demand? Like how involved is the management sim aspect of running the shop?
I never found it to be like cumbersome at all. They have a book that like keeps track of like, this is what you sold it for last. This is people's response to it, whether it was too cheap or too expensive or just right. And that was really nice that it kept track in that book. And it made it much easier and it was also a thing where in the book I could kind of see like, well, the stuff it's around is sort of selling for this. I have an idea of about how much I should be selling this for. But I really enjoyed it. You know, you had these like bosses at the end of each dungeon, and that's how you open the next dungeon. And usually by the time I was done looting and kind of powering up and spending money on myself was when I felt ready to fight the bosses.
Wait, are there other shops with better weapons than you have? Like, how do you spend the money to make yourself
So
better?
like there is a blacksmith, so I would go with my base weapons. I would either buy a weapon or bring a material to make a weapon or whatever it is. And then I would continue to bring in materials and like money to then upgrade to the next tier
You
of
upgrade the
weapons.
town, right?
And you also upgrade the town. So it's like, oh, I'm going to put money into like a reseller, and they sell different. They basically just sell the same kind of stuff I'm selling, but instead of finding it in the dungeon, I can just buy it from him, so I don't have to like do the work. And there were like other things where I could. There's another seller that would sell things that I could like hang in my shop, and then I get like little perks or like 10% tips or whatever it is. Because I put this like painting up.
It's also a weird inventory thing where some items next to other items would dupe on the way out.
Yes, there was a lot of cool
like
stuff.
Almost puzzling.
Yeah, yes. It was like cool stuff and how you strategized, how you brought stuff home. So you have like a limited inventory, just like a backpack. But some items you would take are like cursed or will have like some other option on it where it's like, if this item is next to this other item, it'll destroy it when you go back home, or it'll destroy the curse on it. Or if you put this item next to this item, whatever this stack is will be the item it currently is. So it's like, oh, I have one of this really expensive thing that'll like duplicate this other thing. So I'm going to put it next to a cheap stack of stuff I have an abundance of, and then I have like a 10 stack of this actually expensive thing.
That's cool.
Which was like cool. It was like an
a
interesting way to
neat take
strategize.
on it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and it made inventory management more fun than just like, oh, I'm out of space and let me just dump a bunch of
Sounds
crap.
really cool.
Yeah,
I really liked it a lot. I think it's probably going to be on my top 10 list. I think it's a really cool game.
I've had my eye on it for quite a while.
Yeah, I
It
think
looks
it's on the
really
Switch
nice
now
too.
Like I
Yeah,
almost waited for the Switch.
Yeah, it came out on Switch
but
later.
yeah, I'm glad I played it when it came out because I really enjoyed it a lot.
The footage I've seen, like it's pretty much 2D, right? But it's got a bunch
It's
of
like a pixel art kind of
but it's got a bunch of
not
of
full
like
top-down, but like
particle systems
Isometric.
and physics and
Yeah.
stuff going on with 2D animation that make it look really neat.
yeah. I mean, it's like I'm a little bored of the pixel art by now,
Yeah.
but like it does it very well.
Yeah, it's got
it looks
effects
really
on-
good.
on
The
top of
movement
that.
looks really good. Like
Cool.
I really like this game a lot. I think it's definitely in there for best game, best debut.
And I in its defense, maybe I should look up that graphic, but I think all that stuff is in there now. All that.
Oh, okay. I should go
That's
revisit
good because
it.
I think it was a little light at launch. Like there were
Okay,
4 dungeons, right?
There were 4 or 5, but I never felt like I think I still played like 15 hours of it or something.
Okay.
I never felt like I was like
Bored. or-
wanting for
okay.
more.
I can't quite tell, but it looks like they refer to it as their roadmap 2018, which is almost over. So I assume most of that stuff's in there.
Yeah.
I still want to play that.
I think you should. I think it's totally worth your time. I think
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
I think it belongs anywhere.
I think best game, best debut.
Okay.
Maybe best music. I have to like re-listen. I think that's gonna be the case for a lot of my stuff. Is I have to remind myself what it sounds like. But
Okay.
I will say for sure, best debut, best game.
Okay. Next up, you got a minute to talk about Minute, and then you die.
30 seconds, go.
No,
Minute.
Take
A
your
whole
time.
minute?
Take your time.
I really enjoyed Minute. Minute's like it's a kind of a run. So it's run based in a sense where you only have 1 minute to beat the game. Now there's checkpoints along the way and stuff like that, but it has persistence. So if you get to a thing and get an item, you're going to be keeping that item. You don't start over from there. And so it's kind of just figuring out how to maximize your progress while minimizing risk and other stuff. And you know,
Or, like there's a bunch of tasks you do at a given time, but like you're going to run out of time. You can't do them all. You're
Right,
going
so
to
you
die
focus
at the
on
end
one
of that
thing at a
60 seconds.
time.
So it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the lighthouse and do this real thing real quick, and then die, and then now that's done, so I can go off in a different
So
direction.
that's
Now
what
got
I
stuff.
didn't expect about this game. Is I thought it was going to be a thing where ultimately you could beat it in 60 seconds if you were good enough at it, but it's not that.
no,
It's-
there's like
it is
4 or 5 checkpoints along the way.
It's very much an iterative process of like leapfrogging stuff.
I feel like
it's
was
like
Half Minute Hero, was that the
Yes.
one where like you
That
actually
one.
could just get powerful and just go like charge right to the boss or whatever?
That game is that.
Right,
You
right.
start at the beginning and you just go through it faster. But this is more like, oh, I opened up a shortcut that allows me to skip the first 20 seconds of this.
Yeah,
and,
it's more like a top-down Zelda that resets when you keep your items.
Yes.
Like
Right.
Yeah.
I played through this
and
whole
changes
game.
to the world.
Yeah, I beat this in like a sitter or two. You know, it's a short game.
It's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but like when I saw it on this list, it was like, okay, I remember it was like black and white. I remember the basic thing, but like no part or moment or sequence that like at all kind of like stood out in a memorable way.
I think it's a
fun
cool
thing to
idea.
blow
It's
through.
very
Yeah,
clever.
I really
liked
enjoyed
it.
my time with
I
it. It
think
was
it's
definitely
super
I
like
like the desert stuff. Like now there was kind of the endless desert, but if you
Yeah.
kind of talk to people and use context clues, you
Right.
can figure out how
How
to.
Lost Woods.
That
type
felt
thing.
very
Yeah.
Lost
I liked
Woods.
that.
Yeah.
Like this game for what it was of like this kind of dying and respawning and like starting in certain spots, it was very much a game about exploration and like poking around. And I never felt like I was going through and like kind of lost. I felt like
No.
every time I had a purpose of where I wanted to
It
go
never felt
and like I
tedious. It
accomplished
never
something.
felt
Yeah, it
like,
never
oh, I'm
felt
going to spend
tedious.
this whole minute doing nothing. I mean, sometimes it happened, but it was never like
It
a
was
deterrent.
unusual, and I never felt like I was like wasting my time or like wasted one of my minutes. I really like this game a lot.
I thought it had good writing too. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't a ton of it, but there were characters you would find, and they would have dynamic responses to what you were doing, what items you had.
Right. Or there was like one guy I think where the entire minute he's just like slowly talking to you.
Yeah.
And it's like you know, it's like I know I'm here, I'm just gonna waste this minute
That's
and
a
just
good
talk
joke.
to you the whole time, and it was fine.
I think one
there's
real
an achievement
benefit
for doing that, right?
Yeah.
I think one real benefit to just the format of this game is, there are games like Dead Cells. I love Dead Cells, but you would near the end like have stretches of like 40 minutes or whatever, and then you die and you feel like I didn't really gain anything. Whereas like you were saying, you can die or like spend a minute where you don't really get anything done, but it's not any real loss. It's just like, well, I'll try it again and hopefully find something this time.
Yeah.
Because at worst, it's a minute of your time.
Yeah. But it would feel really good when you would get those. You would bridge those shortcuts together to bypass stuff and get further.
I had one problem with the game, which is kind of minor, but it still really irked me. So I beat the game, not knowing I was going into the last boss battle. And when I beat the game, there's no New Game Plus.
I
There's
had the
no going
same
back to an old
complaint.
save point. It was just like, you can start over now, which is a bummer because there's all sorts of hidden items. There's, a certain number of
Yeah.
coins. Like, I wanted
Right.
to 100%
Yeah,
that game.
I was so
I've read
eager to
it's-
do that too, and then I got to it and was like ready to be like, cool, let me just hop back in and like clean this up, and then it didn't have any
That's
New
a
Game
shame.
Plus.
Yeah,
and I, was
I
like,
never went back
well,
to it because of
same
that.
here. Yeah,
I've-
I was
I've-
like so disappointed
Yeah,
that it
I've
didn't have that.
I've read there's like 8 hours worth of extra stuff to find in
There's
there.
a lot
or
of
something.
cool
Like
stuff.
there's a lot
like,
of hidden things.
I wish that it was. I wish I didn't have to start again because
Yeah.
I would have continued to play that, but it was just such a deterrent.
Yeah, that's a shame. Still a very cool game though.
Yeah.
Is it one of these 10 categories?
Yeah. Do you want to slap it down on anything here?
I can't really
I
see it
don't-
fitting
I
with any of
really
those.
liked
It does a lot of things well. It doesn't do any one thing extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
maybe
I mean, it
best
does the kind-
debut.
It delivers on the concept well. Like,
Actually, best
Yeah,
debut.
best debut.
I'll put it down there.
Minute
I
two,
really
2
liked it a
minutes.
lot. I thought it was really rad.
fuck.
Yeah, this changes everything.
It's just hour. Oh god,
Oh,
no,
becomes a 200-hour JRPG.
no.
Okay. Next game is Spy Party.
2012's best game of 2018.
Is that out?
Still,
It's
I
in early
believe-
access,
I'm pretty
so-
sure it's still in early access. I'll
Yeah.
triple check, but last I checked it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Really
Man.
cool concept.
What a wild thing that is.
What a
Yeah.
ride.
Yeah, it is still early access.
Definitely one of those games like Abby mentioned where it gives back to you as much as you put in. As you start to play it more and more, you kind of develop strategies. You kind of learn once you start dipping into the like harder objectives. It gets a lot of more depth to it. Because going in, I was like, well, how complicated could this be if you just have to do these same 3 things on these same 5 maps? But really, there's a lot of different ways to vary it up if you want to.
Yeah, I also found that the community was actually very nice.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
shockingly like, oh, I did a thing with a stranger, and like, we're kind of keep trying to kill each other, and it was like, oh, how'd you find me out? Or like, what set you off?
That's
or
cool.
whatever it
That's
was. And it was
cool.
really neat.
When-
Like, people were really cool, and they would like give you tips, be like, oh, I knew because, you stuttered here, you did whatever.
Huh.
Right.
Well, yeah, when Chris Hacker, the developer, came through with it, he said, like, hey, the people that are into this are really into it. They'll
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
help you out. But
No,
I
they were
didn't,
super
that's
decent.
It's cool to hear that that's actually true.
Yeah.
Really incredible replay system.
Yeah, man.
Like one of the most in-depth replay systems I've ever seen,
Like-
where you can look at just every angle, you can look at every activity, every
Yeah,
moment. You
like
can
that,
just
that feed
Yeah.
of things, of events
The
scrolling
spectator
by.
mode is pretty good too.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
spectator's cool.
Like you just like a fake sniper.
Yeah. Both in terms of the like replay and spectating stuff, and also just the depth of the game. Like if before I had seen all that stuff, if you'd come to me and said like, "Hey, this could be an esport," I would have just like rolled my eyes. Like, yeah,
Right.
yeah, sure. But like seeing it,
Yeah.
totally. Like there is a massive amount of depth to this thing.
Yeah.
Like it lends itself to a concept that I don't know how to describe. Like kind of, there's a lot of like psychological manipulation or like sort of social engineering type stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like the types of fake outs you can get into, the types of like you really,
You're looking for
especially
the word Yomi here.
Sure. I'll take your, I'll
No
take
one
your-
is ever looking for the word
take your
Yomi
take your word for that. But like, especially if you know the person you're playing and their personality, like you can get in their head and like tailor your deception to the things you think they would fall for.
In a weird way, it's like when you play a game like Avalon or something. It's like,
Yeah,
well, okay, this
yes.
is the way Brad plays this
It
game.
is totally that kind of thing of like knowing your opponent and knowing how you might be able to
Oh,
trick
so
them.
Yomi.
Yeah. dude.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of games like that that sort of encourage a degree of like acting performance, like being
Yeah.
able to sort of
Yeah.
like again, you are trying to manipulate and deceive the other player, but like you have this limited tool set with which to work with, but like the ways you can kind of manipulate that tool set is just really cool.
Like when I played Hecker, the one time I got him, I forget what the situation was, but it was something I looked at and thought like, oh, I bet that's exactly what he would expect a new player to do. So I did the opposite of that, and it totally worked. Like because he thought I was going to do the thing that like you can see opportunities like that that
Right,
are not
yeah.
explicitly in the game design, but that you can kind of tease out yourself.
Which
Yeah, I
probably
think
lends it
it's-
to being better to play against people that you know than like
Yeah.
just doing like random
Yeah.
matching or whatever.
I had no problem with the online stuff. Granted, I didn't get as deep into like the higher level gameplay, but I found the community pretty great.
Yeah, I'm sure the online is fine. I think
Yeah.
being able to like kind of holler at each other after a match is
Right.
Yeah.
No,
kind of
totally.
adds a lot to the experience.
I will say I did have an issue with the online, not necessarily the community, but just like trying to set up matches was
Yeah,
sometimes
the
really
UI
cumbersome.
was janky.
It was like a developer ass UI.
Yeah.
right,
I grant that to it being like early
Yeah.
access because I think the gameplay.
It still has come a lot. Remember, like what that thing looked. It was like basically boxes shooting at
Oh
each
yeah,
other.
Yeah. Definitely has come a long way. Definitely has a decent way to go.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I really like that game a lot. I also think it looks cool. It has this sort of nice like Clue-like aesthetic, which
for
I
sure.
think
Right.
really works.
Yeah.
Lots of tuxedos and,
Yeah.
and statuettes.
And it
diplomats
looks,
and
yeah, it looks both very cool from like the sniper's perspective and also being in the world. Like I don't feel like you're kind of at a disservice on either end.
I remember there was a few weeks after there where we would just say banana bread around the office to each other.
Good use of banana bread.
yes.
For
always,
sure.
always. That game is super cool. I don't know that I have the like stick to itiveness.
Totally. Like I honestly, like
To
we
get deep
recorded
into it?
our video with it, and I played a few rounds of it, and I was like, okay, cool. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I will ever play that game again.
I've gone
Same
back to
here.
it here and there, and I found that there's usually at least a couple of players on it at a given moment,
Yeah.
and gotten into games. But it's something that I have enjoyed revisiting from time to time.
It seems like it would be a tough one where it's like, when we did our video for it, we were all kind of learning at the same time. So
Yeah.
that seems to be like the best case scenario. You've got a bunch of people who are playing it and you're all kind of on the same level. Where if I just grabbed a friend who had never heard of it and I've played a bunch and I know all the weird little strategies, like it would be so lopsided.
Well,
It
you
would
pick it up
take
pretty quickly.
like a couple hours to
Yeah.
get them
Yeah.
up to speed.
I will say though, people are pretty good about being like, "Hey, this is what you did wrong. This is why I caught you." You catch up pretty quickly. I also think there is like a level system of like you have like the easiest
Right,
tier
yeah,
lobby
yeah.
and then like harder ones later on. So I think that can kind of help with that stuff.
Yeah, and there is, I believe, there was ranked matchmaking, right? Which is good because it'll set you up
I think
presumably with people who are the same skill level as you.
But it could be a little. When we did our thing, we had to limit some of the maps because some of the stuff on the bigger maps were not explained that well. Like,
Sure.
I'm not sure what I'm even supposed to be
beyond
doing
us.
here.
Yeah, I mean the tutorial system was good. You have to like sit and take your time with
Yeah.
it because you have to like play through it. But I'm sure if we like sat and figured out the tutorials
Yeah.
or like the harder stuff. for
Yes,
sure.
but if you are cold on a map,
No,
the
totally.
objectives
You're
can,
boned.
yeah, can be a little tough.
Yeah.
I do like I think the variety in map design is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like there's the one with the big statue in the middle that people can hide behind. There's the one that's almost like this panopticon kind of thing of like that wraps around you.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the middle of it.
I'd like to
some
put this
creative
up
layouts.
for best debut.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I can see a bit in there.
It is a wildly original thing.
Yes.
It is like a very audacious type of thing that I feel like could only be made by one guy working
Totally.
for 8 years.
At least 5 or 6.
Well, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it takes a lot
A
of
labor of love.
It takes a lot of like intentionality to make something like this.
It just needs that scope gun from what is that arcade game with the like the
Silent scope.
Silent scope.
Yeah.
gun.
Okay.
That actually, a gun controller would be kind of neat in a really weird
Should
way.
be able to buy those cheap now. No silent scope. It'll be in.
It's not going to work with
Yeah, I don't think the
any
game's designed for
modern
that.
monitor, but yeah,
get
there
that.
are other options for light guns on a PC.
It's just a screen in there, isn't it? I think when you look through the scope, it was just a little video screen in there.
No, it was actually a
Was it zooming
scope,
in?
I think,
Ah,
right?
Jeez, I can't remember.
I get the pedal from Time Crisis.
Yeah.
Yep, just an action game.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Action.
Is Spy Party really one word? It is.
Is it really?
I just looked it up. I have to complain about that. I think that's not.
Take it off.
That is not the correct choice.
Agreed. Capital P though, right?
It is.
Well, there you go.
Intercapped.
Always a good choice.
Like all the best screen names.
What if it's like Infamous Spy Party?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lowercase s.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, all caps.
All right. Next up, we have the next in a franchise that was a surprise contender last year.
I don't know. That's surprising, but
Surprise to many of us, let's say.
yeah.
Yakuza 6 is the new game.
The Song of Life.
Is that the full title?
That is the full title.
After, was it Yakuza 0, I believe, was the
Yes.
thing that set our hearts aflame last year
Yes.
with that hair?
This is the final game in the Kiryu Kazuma story, or at least that is how they framed it. As we know, their team's next game is something that is not Yakuza. It is that
Oh, it's that crazy
Project
thing.
Judge.
Holy
Yeah.
fuck, that thing looks amazing.
And I mean, who knows? That thing seems like it has at least some Yakuza DNA in
Yeah,
it. But
sure.
and they've said they want to do more Yakuza games, but potentially with a new protagonist. So this is kind of the tail end of like his journey of, I guess, technically 7 games. And it's a real good one. It's a real good one. The engine is different. The fighting like is different than it was in 0, and similar to Yakuza Kiwami 1. It's a little bit more freeform. So with with 0, like you would kind of, whenever you would get into a fight, you would sort of be penned into this little area where you just kind of had to fight guys in there. Here you can kind of drag dudes anywhere. You can kind of throw them anywhere. There's just like, there's always like bikes and other objects you can just crush them with.
Well, and on top of that, something that I really appreciated was coming off of 0, which had 2 protagonists that had like 3 or 4 different styles, all with their own combos and everything. So
Yes.
it's a lot of remembering, like, wait, can I do that here? Oh, no, that's
Right,
the other
yeah.
guy's thing. Oh, wait, I'm not in
Not a
this
heat
mode.
move and
I did not play through all of 6, but I played a few hours of it, and like the combat system is significantly better.
I think it's
Are you not switching between styles anymore?
No,
Okay.
so you are building out your move set over time with upgrades, but it is just like sort of one core fighting style that just keeps branching off.
That's smart.
I will say that I think they do oversimplify it slightly. I think there's a little more challenge and a little more engagement sometimes with the 0 combat, but like I never got bored with this. Like there's plenty of just like dumb ways you can wreck shop in that game, which is always fun. And the story, I think it fumbles a little bit in the end, but 95% of that journey was super good. Like it is a really well told tale. It has a pretty cool central mystery in there. There's a good ragtag bunch of backwater Yakuza guys that sort of become your de facto gang through that game. And they're all pretty memorable. Bita Keshi is one of the primary characters in that game, which feels overdue in a way. And he's really good in it. There's a bunch of wrestlers in that game. There's a whole side plot where you are fighting fucking semi-magical street gang of pro wrestlers that are not playing pro wrestlers, and that is actually a tactics battle. It's a weird reverse tower defense thing.
Sweet.
Where you are commanding fights and not really participating in them, but then there's wrestlers also there, and then you fight them.
How are like the mini games and other side stuff? Because that's the
karaoke
stuff that really draws me to
Got that
these
cool
games.
porn mini game.
It does. It has the live chatto, where Kiryu gets very weird and horny.
It's like fun and earnest in this
it totally
kind of
is.
nice way.
Yeah, and they did some real work to make that translate from the Japanese version. It is very like they nail the weirdness of internet chat without getting too pervy about it, which is fun.
Okay.
The mini games overall, I'd say, are like a little less interesting than they were in 0. Like there isn't much new with the karaoke. It's kind of the same. There's a thing where you're going around, you're hunting and finding cats for a cat cafe, and you have to give them the right food so they'll be friends with you. And then when the cat is friends with you, it will go to the cat cafe and live there. But then they fuck it up because you can't pet the cats when you go into the cat cafe. Like, why would you even do that?
Whoa.
Broken.
It's wrong.
Maybe he's allergic.
Wow, most disappointing. Put
That's
it on
because
there.
Kiryu considers cats to be equals.
Yeah.
They're not animals to him.
But that said, like, there's a cool, like, little light. There's a point where you're managing a baseball team, and there's
Is
a
that
light
anything
baseball
like the
management.
cabaret management?
It's less involved, but
Okay.
yes, there is like a team management aspect of that, and you are sort of like you're like managing the team as opposed, and occasionally you will hit.
Okay.
And there's a whole plot line that is essentially Japanese Cheers, where you're just hanging out in this bar and helping all the different bar patrons with the problems in their lives. It is. It
There's
goes
that,
deep.
I've been playing the wrong video.
There's that first-person spearfishing thing too, right?
Yes, there's a
Which
part
is
where you help out a
very
kindly
Sega.
fisherman, and you're essentially playing what feels like a Sega like light gun arcade game, but with spears and angry fish.
And you fight like a giant squid at the end, or is it an octopus?
There's a giant squid. There's a shark boss. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
You work it
Play
out.
this.
There's a big gym mechanic.
There's a licensed gym like Ryzap, which is an actual gym chain in Japan. You can
Not a
go
Konami
there.
one?
No, it's I don't think Konami owns that one. There's a lot to do, and I think the vast majority of it is very good. I think most of the story is very, very solid.
I was gonna
all
say,
around.
how do you feel about if this is kind of the last game in this line or in this kind of chapter of the story or whatever? How do you feel it wraps up? I mean, he's been the guy for so many games now. Do you feel like they do Kiryu justice by the end?
I think for the most part, like I said, I think the central mystery and a lot of the events that happen around that are all really strong. I think towards the end, it kind of rushes the conclusion a little bit. It feels like they kind of ran out of stuff to do with it, and so they explain away a few things just by kind of hand waving and being like, "Oh yeah, no, you survived that because the ambulance got here in time. Yeah, everything's fine." Like people that would seem like they were dead or suddenly alive, and they don't really explain it super well. And there's just like a couple of, again, I haven't played every game in this series, but there are a couple of character moments that feel a little off toward the end where it feels like they just wanted to close this out and they didn't necessarily have the exact through line to make that happen perfectly.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I was engaged the whole way through. I was totally enraptured with the thing, and I don't know, just fucking up Yakuza dudes in the streets of Kamurocho is always fun, and I think it is still super fun in this one.
I wanted to ask, but you said you hadn't played all of them. Has there been one arc across this whole series that has now come to fruition, or does every game have its kind of own self-contained
There
story?
are self-contained arcs through all of these, but there's that history is constantly referenced. And this one does a smart thing at the very beginning where Kiryu, there's a whole bit where you are in Nakoma and you go to you're walking around to these different memories that sort of explain the story.
Oh, kind of everything. Up to this point?
And you can skip that if you want, but it's there if you want to learn some of the lore and
That's
stuff
smart.
that's going to be
Yeah.
referenced in the game.
I was gonna ask if you felt it was friendly to people that didn't play all the other games because
they definitely designed. I remember when they came through to tell us about it. They specifically, I think for the U.S. release also, right? Didn't they do a whole encyclopedia thing? Or
Yes, there's a whole
web comic.
Well,
there's that, but in the game, there's also an encyclopedia that just
catch you up to
explains
speed
everything.
a summary of every game.
Yeah.
That seems important to them, I think, because I remember when I played Yakuza 3 for the first time, they had a graveyard, and you could just blaze past it if you want to, or you can go up to each grave, which is a main character that died, and they'll show you videos of what happened in previous games. That's cool how they do that.
So this is one I would put in a few different categories. It's one I will throw up for best style because I think these games are always incredibly stylish, and even though they are kind of carrying a similar style throughout, it's still impressive. I think the way they deliver on it. I think the soundtrack is really good. I think it is definitely in the running for me for best soundtrack. There's probably a couple of different best moment or sequences, but the one I will mention is that the Onomichi mascot quest line is one of the funniest fucking things I've played in a video game, certainly this year, if not the last couple of years. And there's at least a couple of different moments like that in that game that I would definitely say it belongs on there. Best story and best game.
Okay.
That's what I'm going hard for.
All right.
Sweet.
I don't know if I'm not sure if I even have all those in my head. Was moment
Moment is there, story is there,
and game.
and game.
Style.
Style and
Yeah,
music.
I got
And
those.
music.
I
Yeah.
got those. Okay.
And hottest mess, though that's just
Weird.
feels
That's the mess that Kiryu creates.
I'm glad that developer is doing something different next time, just because I feel like I can actually get in on the ground floor,
Yeah.
as opposed to however much recapping they do at the beginning of this. It's
You should play Zero.
it's
Zero's
intimidating.
Zero is a
really
really good
Yeah.
place to get in.
It's fantastic.
But that's the thing is I played Zero and really liked it, but I don't know that I want to play Kiwami or Kiwami 2 or anything like that.
I think
but
Kiwami 2 is
6
worth playing. We'll talk about that more later, but yeah.
Plus, you'd have to go back to PS2 or PS3 games to see
to
everything.
actually do it.
by the time you finish.
Yeah, they might have put out that
yeah.
HD collection at some point.
Sure. But that next thing just being a brand new property,
Totally.
and also some kind of insane courtroom drama.
I will go with them wherever they want to go.
That is an exciting prospect. But it sounds like this is pretty good too.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that has brought us to the close of the first day of this super long discussion of all of 2018's games.
Yeah.
How's everybody feeling?
Great.
All right.
Solid. Celebrating video games.
Yeah. talked through a lot of stuff. Some good, some bad, mostly good.
Yeah,
I
a lot of
appreciate
good.
all the positive talk.
Like that there was a
This is
stretch
nice.
there with the bad games kind of.
All kind of came out
It
of
was
once.
like
Yeah, like
March
it was-
or
yeah, it was
something
like-
was a little rough.
End of Q1, the dumping ground of get this out before the end of the fiscal year.
Maybe we're gonna learn a little something about game
Yeah.
shipping and development by the end of the year.
Yeah, just shove it out there and see how it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's the end of day one. We've got a couple more days, probably ish,
Yeah,
of talking through the rest of this
hard
list.
to say. We're trying to talk to give the games the time they deserve.
Yeah, we're
So.
going to play it by ear and see exactly how the stuff gets divvied up, but we will talk straight through the rest of this list and then move on to the categories later in the week. We hope you'll join us then. See ya.